Tuesday, April 20th, 2021. Has appropriate meeting notification been made?
Yes, Your Honor, it has.
If we would all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everyone. A roll call, please.
Alderman Ellis,
Here.
Alderman Spiegelberg,
Here.
Alderman Mulder,
Here.
Alderman Shellpepper,
Here.
Alderman Kavieski,
Here.
Alderman Rogers,
Here.
Alderman Rosick, Alderman Zappel.
Here. First on the agenda item is a ceremonial oath of office for our newly elected officials, and we're excited to have 4 of our alderpersons being re-elected. So, Ms. Conan, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would now like to ask Alderman Karen Spiegelberg, Alderman Lou Kavieski, Alderman Andy Rogers, and Alderman Kevin Ellis to come up to the front in the center area of the council oval.
I got shorts on, so.
Look cleaned up.
Okay, I'm going to swear you in. If I could ask you all to please raise your right hand. All righty. Do you solemnly swear to support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin, and faithfully discharge the duties to the office to which you have been elected? And that's Alderwoman, District 1, Karen Spiegelberg, Alderman, District 2, Lou Kavieski, Alderman, District 3, Andy Rogers, and Alderman, District 4, Kevin Ellis, to the best of your ability, so help you God. Congratulations. 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 And welcome back. And I have a certificate for you. Certificate of election that you are officially here for 2 more years. Andy and Kevin, thank you so much.
And I think another round of applause. Thank all 4 of you. It's been a pretty crazy last 12 months. 1 new mayor, 3 new aldermen, and 4 aldermen that were reelected, and trying to give us the guidance so that we can make good decisions here at the city. So on behalf of the city, I'd like to thank everyone here on council, all of our staff, for things that have gone on over the last 12 months, and we're going to make sure we hit it out of the park and do some wonderful things in the next 12 months. Thank you very much. I'd like to go on and move on and open the public hearing, please. And we'll start off first with a description. Mr. Gallo, we're going to be discussing a public hearing on food trucks. Mr. Gallo.
Thank you, Mayor and Aldermen. I will give a brief overview of the draft ordinance that we have before us. I know that this discussion has been before the committee of the whole, and as well as the Plan Commission. Some of you may have seen some of this before, but for the benefit of the audience, I'll go through it quickly. I did eliminate a few slides that you may have seen earlier, but it's an ordinance that would regulate food trucks and mobile food shops, and we have a public hearing this evening. It's also on the agenda for action this evening. So we have, that's a picture right there of one of the food trucks in the city. The ordinance itself would be for food trucks and mobile food shops only. Something like a Buddy's Beach Bungalow is not considered mobile, so that would not be pertinent to this ordinance tonight. So I just kind of want to give you a clear understanding of what is regulated and what would not be. Also, we have a lot of special events in the city of Oconomowoc, and some of these events like the German Christmas market, as you can see on the screen, bring in food trucks. These would not be regulated under this ordinance as well. Okay, any vendor that's here for 1 to 3 days, if it's for Fall Fest or the Festival of the Arts or German Christmas market, those would not be regulated. They're under the umbrella of the permit of that event. So those would be exempt. Now, our current ordinance, for those who are maybe not aware, has very few requirements in it, okay? Almost anything goes. I mean, it's very slim. It's an administrative review. I ask people to fill out a temporary use permit. They submit a plan of operation that basically says, I'll be selling, Monday through Sunday and 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and here's a site plan, and the owner has to send me an email. There's a $75 fee, and there's no renewal fees. Every year it's free. And they must get inspected by the fire district and the building inspector. So it's about it. It's a fairly simplistic process. We have an ordinance that's lacking details. We have an approval process that's administrative by myself. The fees are minimal, and there's no clear regulations. So all of these photos are taken of trucks that are either in the city now or they were in the city at one point. So the approval process falls under a temporary use permit, which allows these trucks to be in the city on a certain location for up to 6 months. There is one exemption. 212 East Wisconsin Avenue was exempt. Back in 2012, a food court was approved. That was the site plan at the time that allowed up to 5 vendors on that site. Some time ago when I gave this presentation earlier, there was 6 operating food trucks within the city. I believe Nico's Euros has left. Also Open Road Coffee. I don't see that there anymore, but we still have 4. And there's others that have expressed interest in coming to the city. No one immediately pending, but I've received several phone calls and emails while we've been working on this ordinance. So I went out and I researched some other communities, both in-state and out-of-state. I looked at Waukesha, Madison, Milwaukee, Wauwatosa, and other states out of and Cedarburg, and then out-of-state as well. You can see some of them listed there. Most of those did not have regulations for on private property. They regulated the street parking as well as special events. One day I was in the city of Waukesha going to get my hair cut, and I noticed all these people standing there, and I looked up and there was a food truck there. That was back on January 30th, and there's actually 13 people waiting in line for a milk can. I think they do hamburgers, but it shocked me. It's like the food must be really good to get all these people. So, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know how popular these will ever become, but it tells you that we need some better regulations if this becomes more and more popular. So we went ahead and drafted an ordinance with the help of the Committee of the Whole and the Plan Commission and my research. We put it all together. We said, okay, now if you want to have a food truck in the city on private property, you'd have to show us a better description of the truck and what product you're selling. You have to provide the Waukesha County Department of Health. Earlier on, we said a certificate of insurance, but that's been removed by the Plan Commission. We need a better location and site plan, property owner's permission, plan of operations and fees. And then now the ordinance regulates, this is where it gets interesting. The inspections, it's detailed out, location requirements, so that means you have to be a certain distance from the sidewalk and from other critical items. Alcohol and tobacco, now we have a regulation that says you cannot sell those products. Waste and litter is regulated. It must be removed daily. The utility connections, how are these going to be run? Signage is regulated, music, lighting, the amount of tables, which is 2 per truck, and the number of chairs is regulated, 8. Restrooms, right now, there's nothing on that. We say if there's 3 or more trucks on one property, that triggers a restroom requirement, a revocation process. And then we also added an overall maximum number in the city. There's been some discussion about, hey, do these have a competitive advantage over bricks and mortar type stores? So maybe we should just kind of cut it off at 15, see how it's going, see how that impacts. We can always change that in the future. In the ordinance, there's also the idea of the creation of a food court. This is a site plan. It's a little challenging to understand, but we basically, this isn't working on the screen, but we have parking on the right side, and we have a couple of bathrooms, and then the yellow rectangular boxes would be the trucks, and the brown things in the middle would be little tables, and then even some seating on the far left side. So this is in Naples. This is the actual site plan, and this is what the food court actually looks like that was built. It's kind of an exciting thing. This could be create an Oconomowoc special place with the food courts, the little tables in the middle there, the outdoor seating at the pavilion at the end. We do have water as well, so it's very nice. Something like this would be required a site plan, and it must go to the Plan Commission for their review. So we would hold the bar high, and it would be a really nice area for people to congregate and enjoy different varieties of food. So some of the highlights that I just want to talk about that I shared with the Plan Commission and that this Committee of the Whole talked about was the fees. Currently, we have a $75 fee, and it's a no fee for renewals. We've upped that up a little bit. The initial fee would be $500 for a temporary, and I can approve something for up to 3 months administrative. That's what temporary means, 3 months. So like June, July, and August, and that would be a temporary fee. If they want to be there year-round, it would be a $1,000 fee, and we would really have to look at a lot of things before we say yes. In addition to that, the annual fee for a permanent site would be $450. The number of trucks, as I mentioned earlier, would be capped at 15 in the city. The approval process, I could do administratively, as a zoning administrator, up to 3 months or less. Others would go to the Plan Commission. If it's a food court or if it's a permanent site, it would go to the Plan Commission. Utilities, we would not allow permanent water and sewer hookup. Signage is limited to whatever they can fit on the truck, and then 1 additional 2x3 sandwich board. Music is prohibited from playing from the truck. Tables and chairs, we created some nice things about no more than 2 tables and seating for 8, and all the chairs have to be compatible, and there's some language in the ordinance about consistency on the chairs. And then restrooms, we covered this earlier. If 3 or more vendors are on one site, a portable restroom is required, and it would have to be screened as well from the road and the adjacent, if there's residential properties. So the Plan Commission looked at this a couple weeks back, and they recommended approval of this ordinance to the Common Council. They had some 10 different changes. They said the certificate of insurance could be removed because there's no need to show city this insurance coverage if it's on private property. That's in page 2 of the ordinance. The fees, they said let's remove those, and we'll keep the same amount, but we'll adopt it by a separate resolution. And if we decide to go forward with this tonight, I prepared a resolution, and I took the fees out of the ordinance and put them in a resolution, which is in the packet. Renewals, They said, what if someone doesn't renew by January 31st, as it says it? What happens then? So I added some language in there that says it would be considered a new application, and they would have to pay again. Temporary use, we wanted to avoid someone to circumvent a permanent location and keep going temporary. So it says that it prohibits temporary use permits renewals at the same location and just reapplying. Location requirements, we added cannot be located within 25 feet of a wetland or a waterway in case there are any problems with the truck itself. Utility hookup, using extension cords, originally we thought would be prohibited. The Plan Commission thought, no, we don't want these on generators. It could be a noise factor. They said, why don't we use them, but per the discretion of the building inspector with some safety, he would be checking, make sure that everything is good. Lighting can not be visible from adjacent properties or public streets. We had on there adjacent properties, but they added public streets because potentially it could cause glare onto the roadway, and that could be a safety issue. Litter, trash shall be removed daily from the site unless it's within a screened dumpster, and then that could get picked up on an as-needed basis. Restrooms shall be screened from public view. That's something they added. And then the revocation process would go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. That's where anytime someone appeals a decision, it goes to the Zoning Board of Appeals. I'll be available to answer any questions on this topic later in the evening. It is on the agenda for discussion, but we're in the public hearing portion right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gallo. I would like to enter into the record a letter that has been at everybody's station, all the aldermen. And it is a letter dated today, April 20th, from Laurel Whalen, and it's addressed to the mayor and common council members with regard to the food truck. So just want to make sure we enter this into record, please. And again, at the public hearing, if you have a question, please fill out a blue card, give it to Mr. Gallo. If you have a question, right now I just have one blue card for the public hearing. Mr. Mike Hero. And Mr. Hero, we'd like to try to keep it to 3 minutes or less, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Mike Arrow. I'm a member of Sandy Creek LLC. We've acquired properties from 202 East Wisconsin through 310 East Wisconsin Avenue over the last 14 years. In those 14 years, we've paid over $216,000 in taxes, and these food carts have just kind of shown up because business has, there was a call for it. Early on, we had a stone-fired pizza guy there, then we had a hot dog person there. So we've had a variety of people. Now we've got 2 tacos wagons, and the Euro truck would like to be back later, I think in May. So this site sets up well for a food cart court. And that's what my brother Ken and I will be proposing over the next 30 to 45 days. But wanted to address a couple of the issues tonight. One of them is lighting. It was brought up earlier. I'm not sure what that means, whether it means the lighting can't go over the lot line or into the roadway or adjacent. I mean, to me, the way it's written, though, you can't have any lighting. So that needs to be clearly identified. The other issue is temporary fees. The $500 that you're looking at is a very high number for someone that wants to come there for a short period of time. And we understand that these fees, the city needs to be reimbursed for all their time and effort. And we commend Jason and the administration to putting this ordinance together. We think it's necessary. We're not opposed to it. But we'd ask that these 2 items be discussed and refined. In addition, since this site sets up so naturally for a food cart court, we are going to propose, we'll come before you in the next couple months with a very high quality, much like the food cart court in Florida, well-defined, well-landscaped, with its own bathrooms, additional parking for the city, The bathrooms will be year-round, the parking will be year-round. So it's, this will be a food cart court that I think City of Oconomowoc will be proud of. Again, I thank you for taking on the ordinance, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments with regard to food trucks? Anyone from the audience? If you have a comment, if you could please come to the microphone. Please state your name and your address, please.
I'm Lynn
Can you
Werther.
pull the mic down, please?
Sorry, Lynn Werther. My comment is,
And where do you live, please?
I'm sorry,
Your street address?
my street address?
Yes, yes, please.
Oh, actually, I don't live in the city. Does that matter?
It doesn't matter, but we just need to know it for the record, please.
Oh, Center Oak Road in the town of Merton.
Thank you.
My question is, I frequent the taco places down the road. I'm concerned that this is being proposed at a time when COVID has hit small businesses a lot. Do they need financial burden with these additional fees? So I was thinking, you need to promote these businesses. Therefore, the fees are a little on the high side, I think. And I was concerned about that. And then there again, the benefit for this is for everyone, on my understanding, correct? There you are. So those are my comments. But I'm thinking that perhaps, as Mr. Harrow has discussed, you know, maybe table these high fees temporarily, because you want to promote business. You don't want to deter it and add financial burden to the small businesses. That's my comment.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from the audience, from the public, with regard to this topic? Any other comments? Then I'm going to move forward and close the public hearing on the food trucks and move on to our next item. Our next item is entertain a motion to approve the minutes for March 16th, 2021.
So move Zaffel.
Second, Spiegelberg.
All in favor?
Aye.
Discussion? Nope, because we all said aye. Good. Let's move on, please. To comments and suggestions. I have one comment suggestion from a citizen, and it's Mike Hero. Not necessary?
Get another
Okay.
3 minutes.
You were under 3 minutes. I have a young lady here with her hand up. Yes, please. If you could come up to the microphone and just please state your name and your living address location, please.
Sure. My name is Sarah LePage. I live at 140 Worthington Street in the city of Oconomowoc. It's at the intersection of 2nd Street and Worthington Street. Those of you who maybe walked past my house have probably met my dog and made friends with him. I'm here to ask the city for a 4-way stop sign at that intersection. I've collected a whole bunch of signatures in a relatively short amount of time, so I can tell that in my neighborhood, the support for this is really strong. And I'm sure it would be more like if I was more likely to get out of my house and run around in the snow and the rain. Now, over the past several years, even as we've heard tonight, we've seen some pretty amazing revitalization of our downtown district. This committee has done an amazing job of making downtown Oconomowoc a destination and a walking destination, and has really helped to foster a great culture within our city of utilizing our overwhelmingly walkable streets, and that is fantastic. I know we all love walking around Oconomowoc and utilizing all these great things. We can walk to the library, to the beach, to the community center, downtown, restaurants, shops, bars, food trucks, galleries, the boardwalk, this cool new Oz thing that we saw tonight. And so I'm sure you're wondering, what does that have to do with a 4-way stop sign at the intersection of 2nd and Worthington Street? A real life example is on March 20th, there was an accident there that saw a car come through my picket fence and land up in the middle of my front yard. And that's not so bad. A fence can be replaced. But about 3 minutes earlier, my 9-year-old daughter was up in that corner of the yard grabbing a ball. So it was really terrifying for us, for our neighbors, and I get lots of questions about why there's chicken wire spit and voodoo holding my fence together. A lot of times a day, multiple times a day, people stop at my fence to talk to my dog or to me. They often stop at that corner. It's just a really dangerous place to have an accident that bounces off the street and into somebody's yard. Several of my neighbors, when I was walking around talking about this and asking for their support for my request for a stop sign, told me that they're interested in having a stop sign there, that they've asked for one. I don't know how many of them showed up at city council meetings, but I'm here now to speak for them as well. There are a couple of problems with that intersection that contribute to how dangerous it is. Really, just namely two problems. The first problem is the traffic on 2nd Street between Main Street and Concord Road has no reminder, such as a stop sign would give, to slow down a little bit. And regardless of intent, drivers can reach speeds above 25 miles per hour just because it's a long, straight, flat, wide stretch. I've seen far too many heavily loaded dump trucks come by at far over 25 miles an hour. And as I said, from Main to Concord, 2nd Street is wide, flat, straight, and 1/3 of a mile long. That's a pretty long stretch. Even if drivers don't mean to speed, it's easy to kind of forget yourself. The street is so smooth and nicely paved, so good job with that. But it's so wide and it's so straight, and I mean, you can see straight down the whole thing. People forget themselves and they go too fast. There needs to be a reminder to slow down and pay attention, and a 4-way stop would provide such a reminder. So that's problem number one: too wide, too flat, too long, people going too fast. Problem number two is that visibility at 2nd and Worthington at that intersection is terrible. Cars are parked close to the corner, and unless you're in a lifted truck or a semi-truck or a delivery truck, a big truck, you cannot see who's coming down 2nd Street. And now if you combine that with excessive speeds coming down 2nd Street, you've really got a recipe for disaster. With a 4-way stop sign in there, traffic is slowed enough that even if there is an accident, it stays in the street and not on somebody's property. Now, beyond the obvious danger that the intersection poses, we have to take into account the demographics of the neighborhood. The neighborhood is turning over as older residents downsize and new families move in. And it is really so great to see a gang of kids running up and down 2nd Street and up and down Worthington Street. I get to watch kids other than my own learn how to ride their bikes and rollerblade and laughing and giggling and having a great time. These are little kids. They're not super cognizant of the fast traffic coming down their street. And I would shudder to think what could happen to a 10-year-old kid trying to rollerblade for the first time across that intersection. And as I said before, as I witness every day, often several times a day, there are close calls. A week ago from today, I was out, remember when there was sunshine? I was out in my garden digging around trying to get ready for the springtime, and in the space of 45 minutes, I witnessed not one, not two, but 3 near accidents, complete with squealing brakes and beeping horns and people yelling and shaking their fists out their car windows. Now that happens far too often, and every time the brakes squeal and the horns blare, myself and the people that I live with in my neighborhood kind of hold our breath and wait for the crunch to happen.
If you could wrap up, that would be
Sure, I'm
great.
almost done. One more sentence. Putting in a stop sign at this intersection would do a lot to enhance and enforce the pedestrian-friendly vibe of our city. And thank you for your time. Thanks.
Super, thank you. And if you'd like to wait to the end of the program, we can give you an update as to what's going on there.
Love that.
So I'll have somebody talk with you. Thank you for sharing. Any other comments from the audience, from citizens, comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, so I'm going to turn it over to Attorney Riffle.
as a matter of personal privilege, I would like to introduce a law student that works with me, Greg Procoro over here. He is a second-year law student at Marquette University. You know, I've been doing this for 41 years, and 41 years from now, perhaps, he will be your city attorney.
Gentlemen, welcome.
You're going to be here another 41 years, Stan?
Won't, but I will.
I'm not. I will not.
Will feel like it.
On to consent agenda items. I'll entertain a motion for the following consent agenda items.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
On to committee reports, finance. Ms. Sullivan.
So tonight, we're talking about updating the procurement policy. In your packets, you saw an updated version of a procurement policy that hasn't been updated since 2012. So the purpose of updating this policy is really to lay out to, the council and department heads the process that we will use to apply the budget that you approved in November for 2021, and how we will go about making purchases. So the major changes in this policy, first of all, it's probably about 6 pages longer than the old one, and that's really because we spent some time defining the different types of purchases that we make and laying out tables so that people could look at this policy, see what it is they want to purchase, and find it on the table to see how many quotes they need, what's the process that they need to go through, is there a purchase order required, also what approvals you need to go through. It gives council a good idea of what they will see come back to them and what is approved administratively. What I didn't mention at finance earlier today is for those purchase orders that are approved administratively, we do provide the council with a quarterly report of all of those so that you can keep it current with where we are with purchases. As a matter of fact, in tonight's council packet with the treasurer's report, you'll see the first quarter purchase orders that were approved administratively. Okay. At finance, we made a few changes to the policy that you're looking at right now, and probably Matt wants to go through those. Yes? Or do you want me to say?
You can or I can, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
I
So
can
when
do
we
it
look,
after I make the motion too.
okay.
Yeah.
You're going to do it when you make the motion?
It's up to you. I can go either way.
Okay.
Whatever you want to do.
That's fine. And maybe what I'll do is I'll go through it and you can tell me if I missed anything here, okay? So when we're looking at the policy, we did make just a few adjustments to it. The Finance Committee did. So when we look at page 1, I think the biggest add to this policy is on page 1. And it is on the second paragraph under coverage. And Matt would like us to add the sentence in here that council can, at its discretion, provide, or I missed the word, maybe I'll have Matt do this.
Provide for a more stringent process for specific purchases or budgeted items.
Right, so they would provide that direction at budget time. So if there's something that's in the budget that's being approved that is of interest of council's a specific project or something, that they would give direction at that time, that there's more reporting or approvals that they would like to see happen at that time.
I'd like to open it up for discussion. Any comments? Alderman Zapfel?
Thank you, Mayor. Lori, thank you again for answering my questions. It seems like a month ago.
Yeah.
But I just, to pigtail off that amendment here, is this the best way to drive the best price if we put it in the budget?
I think so. It requires departments, if you look in here, it requires to get quotes, to get on the phone and call and check out different vendors, provide the documentation for that while they are making a purchase.
Okay, all right, thank you. And thank you again for answering all the questions
Sure.
I asked.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
To Alderman Zapfel's question, that kind of begs a concept that I brought up in Finance Committee, and that is if we should potentially down the road look into centralized purchasing. It doesn't necessarily work for every aspect of a governmental entity, but a lot of governmental entities use a centralized purchasing function, and they gain a lot of economies of scale and savings through that. I know the department heads probably don't want to hear this, but I think it's definitely worth looking into because we could save a lot of dollars if we centralize some portion of our purchasing.
Yeah, so
No,
currently, Karen, there are some portions of purchasing that are centralized in the utilities. And then at City Hall too, we have contracts for like office supplies and, things like that so that we can consolidate some of those purchases. But while that is not part of this policy right now,
Right.
that is something that, as the mayor mentioned, that we can look into and, kind of see where we can consolidate some of the purchases. One of the things, and I know that Alderman Zaffel brought up, I have a section in here, and I believe it's called sole source purchases, and I agree with him. That's probably not the best name for that section, but what we're really talking about is cooperative arrangement purchases. So we belong to co-ops And we're able to make purchases that have already been vetted, you know, they've already been bid on, so we can get the lowest price. Also, we purchase through the state of Wisconsin contract. So when we're saying sole source, that's probably not, like you said, not the best word, but what we're trying to get at here is if we have a co-op arrangement or we're buying through a cooperative contract through the state of Wisconsin, that we don't have to go get those 3 extra quotes because the work has already been done and we are getting the lowest price from the state contract.
Alderman Kavieski?
I'm familiar with that type of purchase arrangement. They're pre-qualified purchasing agreements that
Correct.
are in place. There are TIPS, there's UW, there's state. There's a variety of vehicles that are available. They're pre-qualified purchasing vehicles. Maybe that's the way that they're referred to as opposed to sole source.
Yeah, cooperative purchasing arrangement. Now, the other reason it says sole source is because every once in a while, we've purchased, like, say, an HVAC system, and we're pretty invested in it. We've got a lot of money in it. It's a certain brand. We may have to, if we're purchasing something for that, for repair or maintenance, we have to buy that same brand. We can't go get quotes on different brands that aren't going to fit into what we already have. So sometimes there's only one place that we can buy something from. Not very often, but it happens. And so that's listed in here as well.
Alderman Rozak?
Yeah, just a quick thanks for allowing us another couple weeks to look at this. I think it was very helpful, answered a lot of questions before and after. I just want to speak about 2 other quick changes we made. There were, in the Finance Committee, for a couple of you that didn't make it, we made that change to paragraph 1 on page 3, adding in if the council decides during a specific item. We also voted to change a little bit of language in there about government officials, making that clear, and a few other typos and other corrections. And then Karen made a change that we accepted, fixing the tables on page 7 and 9 to properly reflect the amounts, and Karen gave those changes to Matt Trebatuski. So if you guys are comfortable with that, that's what we did to just make that clear, because some of those numbers were a little off. Then I have just 2 real general questions I saved really for this time, which is on page 9 and 14, and I think it just begs some additional discussion and or clarity from Lori. We have this column of non-budgeted or over-budget items, and what Lori told me after the Finance Committee meeting was that it's still, if something's not budgeted or over-budgeted, it still has to make it within the budget of that department, correct?
So it might be over a line item, but departmentally, it still fits within their budget. So if you look at just below the table, there's a section called over budget. And the last line in there says that the departments are responsible for ensuring and documenting that the funds are available within their department budget. So sometimes, you know, you'll have something that, you know, you're thinking you budgeted in there as a line item, it's $5,000, and it turns out to be $5,700. So that's less than $1,000. It's within the department head's authority to authorize that, as long as it still fits within their budget and doesn't put their department over budget. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so then, is there, if it's completely over budget, over budget, over budget?
Yep.
I
Yep.
don't know what else to call it. Then what do? You got to come in for an actual budget amendment, correct?
That's
You get
right.
the
So
2/3.
if,
Okay.
if it doesn't fit within the budget, it will always come to council because we can't spend more money than is in the budget. So if it is over budget and the city administrator agrees that we still need to move forward with it, we will bring it to council for contingency or unassigned fund balance use.
So then the big question for me then is, in those higher tables, do we move the table up a little bit on that side right column and create additional oversight, or do we leave it where it is? I'm kind of comfortable where it is, I think. 25 grand is still a lot. But between 10,000, what will be corrected, $10,001 to 25,000, you know, that's a big, you know, that is a big number. And I think most departments are probably going to struggle if they have too many of those items in one budget cycle, that they're going to be able to fit that in under the full department budget.
As
I'm
you
okay
guys,
with it.
yeah, as you well know, we do a line item budget with itemized things in the lines. So you know the budgets are tight. It's not like we've got a lot of extra money out there and can buy things that are outside of the budget. These are for occasional things that we intended to buy, but is a little bit more than what we had budgeted for. If it is something major that comes up, just like a couple of council times ago, and we had a plow truck that, or a loader that was broken, and they needed $17,000, it didn't fit in the budget, we came to council and asked for that budget amendment.
Well, thanks for that clarity. That answers that question for me.
Okay, good.
Unless anyone else has an issue with it. The only other question I had was on page 14, which I think is, again, a policy decision we should make as the full council, which is these emergency purchase items. In the old procurement policy, it was up to the city administrator to approve the emergencies, and that was carried through in this document. No offense to Matt, but I think in an emergency where there's an emergency purchase, this isn't the old days where, you know, maybe you'd have to dial someone up and try to track them down and maybe you can't find them. I think in an emergency, if there's a major purchase, it should be done by an elected official that's fully accountable to the people for making a decision that may be right or wrong. So I'm going to propose that we change the emergency powers to the mayor and make that elected official, who is our chief executive, responsible for that emergency decision. Obviously, it's going to come from Trebutusky and the department heads anyway, but I want someone who is accountable to the people for a major decision like that. That could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. There's a sewer break, there's a major problem, and we need to spend a lot of money. I want the mayor to make that call. So that would be a change I would suggest, and I'll throw that out for discussion.
Alderman Mulder.
Would you say then the next in line would be the city administrator if the mayor wasn't available?
No. The president of council.
You're saying if you can't reach the mayor, then the decision wouldn't be made?
No, you go to the president, go to the council president.
I think one comment, because I wasn't prepared for this discussion, one comment you have to realize is the person that knows everything is a city administrator, much more than any elected official. The accountability, I think, is fine, but I think it's very, very important that the city administrator is involved. Secondly, if you put it just in a chain of command of elected officials, none of us are full-time. We're not always here. The city administrator is. I have no problem putting it at the mayor if that's what you want to do. But I would definitely, if the mayor's not available, I would go directly to the city administrator. Because frankly, if that was happening, I would go right to him because he knows every integral, he's a controller for the city. He's going to know more than any of you, including myself. So that's just a comment and a suggestion and
Yeah, I
for
think
your
that's
discussion.
a great comment.
That's a
So
good point.
what I would say is then we make the mayor shall make the determination. If he's not available, then we change that to city administrator, finance director, police chief, and right in line. And if you're available and you can make the call with the proper information, that's great. I think it's better for a community, personally, for that elected official to have that oversight. And if you can't get a hold, you know, for whatever reason, you're gone, you're on a trip, you're in Europe, then it immediately would pass the city administrator, and I think that's an easy call.
I think the
Alderman
ones,
Kavieski?
sorry.
If, I appreciate the conversation. I completely agree that an elected should be accountable for that, no matter who the city administrator is. I have full confidence in you, and I have full confidence in whatever city administrator it is would provide the information relevant to whatever elected official would be signing off on it, whether it be the mayor or the president, council, or vice president, council. There is a chain of command. So if the mayor at the time is not available and there is a derailment or some issue, then the president, council. That's why those positions are there. So it is a phone call. It could be an email via phone that provides that approval, but some kind of documentation that holds the elected accountable and involved in that process, I think is still very relevant.
Yeah, I don't think we should involve the council members because we're really part-time. I mean, we're even more part-time than the mayor. I mean, the mayor's out there. I mean, you've got a mayor and the city administrator that are doing, you know, a lot of the more executive stuff, and I think it should rest on those guys. And I have full confidence in the rest of the folks down the line, finance director, police chief, to make those calls. So I don't, you know, now you're getting down the line where the mayor's not available. Now you're going to call whoever the council president is, and then the vice president. That's too far down the line, and I think takes too much time. That's my opinion in emergency. So.
Alderman Kavieski. I love the smile on your face.
Just because he knows I'm right.
No.
Ouch.
On occasion.
Those are fighting words.
However, again, those positions exist within council for a reason. And we either value the reason that they're there, or we don't, and we should get rid of them, in my opinion. The need to expend dollars to take care of an emergency, for sure, I agree that the mayor should be contacted and said, hey, here's the situation, this is $150,000, we gotta get this now. Mayor should say, yep. If you can't get a hold of the mayor, it's just another call to another elected official that's already identified in the chain of command associated with the emergency protocols that probably would be relevant to whatever that call would need to be dealing with. So again, we either value the positions that already exist in that chain of command to deal with those emergency situations, or we don't. So for that reason, I would strongly suggest that there is that chain of command. We follow that chain of command in regards to the elected engagement for those types of expenditures.
So I would agree there's a chain of command, but frankly, there's absolutely no definition of roles, responsibilities, expectation of the president of the council or the vice president of the council. So I'm actually more in line with what you're thinking, Matt, because if we sit back and look at it, what do we think in a situation, an emergency situation, is best for the city? Let's look at that first. Or let's look at those two other positions and define them better. We can't get rid of the president of the council or vice president. That's statutory, period. We can't do it, but there's no definition. We know that. So sometimes they're figureheads, sometimes they do absolutely nothing, sometimes they're engaged, sometimes they're not. City administrator always knows.
Right.
Finance always knows. Our police and our fire chiefs, they always know. So when I sit back and look at it, my recommendation for your consideration is do what you think is best for the city. Alderman Ellis.
Yeah, in the case of an emergency, for the most part, it's got to be made pretty much on the spot. And the problem there is the learning curve. For any of us, we would really have to be brought up to speed and actually understand the details at which this emergency is going through. So I concur with you. I think that we should give it to the mayor, and at that point in time, then city administrator, and then I think that's the best way to do it, because then the learning curve isn't there.
So I'll make a motion then.
Before you do, I just have another comment. Ms. Sullivan, I know you wanted to make a comment.
Oh, I was just going to say, when we looked at these policies and what cities do, generally, the first contact is the city administrator because he's the most engaged in what's going on. With the city administrator immediately contacting the mayor to let the mayor know what's going on, and and then reporting to the council at the next meeting. So what we're missing in this policy is that sentence that says immediately contact the mayor and report to council at the next meeting. But operationally, when these emergencies happen, it's really Matt that's going to be the one that knows what's going on with every department at that moment.
And that's what it was when I first came on with Sarah.
Yeah.
And it works actually quite well. And I think it depends upon what you as council, as policymakers, feel is the most important.
Yeah, I'll make that motion. And it's not changing the critical need. I think we leave that alone and let the city administrator make those calls. But only in these extreme emergencies where the chief elected makes the call. So my amendment on page 14 will be the mayor shall make such determination and authorize the emergency purchase. If the mayor is not immediately available, the city administrator, the finance director, or police chief may authorize an emergency purchase.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Nay.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Zappel.
Aye.
Thank you. I'd like to entertain a motion for
Yeah, I'll move to adopt
yes.
I'll move to adopt the City of Economowoc revised procurement policy as amended at Finance Committee and as amended by a recent council vote.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Zappel.
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on to utilities. Consider act on water tower logo change in tourism funding collaboration. Mr. Duffy.
Thank you, Mayor, common council, and thank you to the Utility Committee for bringing this up. As you know, we have several elevated towers throughout the community, there's work that's done on them periodically every 10 years. We've never had the opportunity, so I do appreciate the committee bringing up that. Currently, it says Oconomowoc in block letters, a public power community. But during that discussion, could it say something else? Obviously, we as a community have a tremendous brand that we have. You see it on the flag behind you. It's on all of our vehicles in most of our parks. Having this opportunity, we wanted to bring that forward of putting Oconomowoc's logo on there, as well as Life Comes Naturally, which is our tagline. In doing so, as we often do as collaborative projects, jointly fund those types of situations between departments. And in this case, having it branded, we did present this to the Tourism Commission yesterday, who is willing to put forth $7,500 to this. That is the total expenditure, in addition to what the utility was already going to do, is 15. So Tourism Commission be willing to pick up $7,500 if the council is. So what our ask is today is, one, are you interested in pursuing this? Because ultimately what that would mean from the utility perspective is for this to be a budget amendment, for the $7,500 to come from the contingency fund to match the tourism funds. So, sorry I didn't pop it up on the screen, but literally our water tower would have the city logo on it as opposed to what it is, so.
Any questions for Mr. Duffy? Alderman Kavieski.
It was mentioned in Utility Committee, and we have seen some requests for amended budget thus far this year. But as you mentioned, this opportunity hasn't been available previously, so it wasn't something that could be budgeted for until we brought it up in the Utility Committee and made a recommendation, and through that process engaged with tourism and explored the funding opportunities. So that's why it wasn't budgeted previously. It wasn't an opportunity to take a look at. But as you mentioned also, that those water towers are scheduled for 10-year maintenance and overhaul maintenance with yearly maintenance and inspection in between. This is a time that the water tower at the Olympia site is due for that major repaint. It's taken down to metal and repainted. This is an opportunity to create that brand and that pride in our community in that southern gateway off of 94 in an area that is seeing revitalization with the Olympia Phase 1 activity currently approved and underway. I would strongly encourage support for the funds. They're minimal. I think if you took a look at what it would cost to do this kind of exposure and this kind of branding in the private sector, it's way more than $7,500 over a 10-year period. It is the biggest bang for the buck that I think we could possibly get, and I hope you support it.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
And I sat in on that meeting yesterday, and that was exactly, a couple of the things that stuck out to me were, yes, it's kind of a welcome to our community. It's going to be facing southern direction towards 94. And like Alderman Kavieski said, I mean, you can't get that kind of advertising for that amount of money. As people are driving down 94 and see that big, beautiful Oconomowoc logo on the water tower, I think it's going to look awesome.
I'd like to entertain a motion.
So moved, Kavieski.
Second. Shell Pepper.
Any further discussion?
Just add that if with approved here, we would bring it back with a resolution, since that 7,500 would come from, excuse me, since that would be coming from the contingency account in the budget and does require an amendment.
Super majority, yep, because it's a budget.
Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Zappel.
Aye.
On to Plan Commission, consider act on ordinance 21-01007 to create section 17.1110 of the City of Oconomowoc zoning code regarding food trucks and mobile food shops. First reading. Mr. Gallo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Earlier tonight, we held a public hearing on this ordinance. We had 2 speakers. Comments were made regarding 2 sections of the ordinance regarding the lighting and the fees. The lighting section is regulated on page 3, and I'll just read that section. It says, lighting, all vendor lighting shall be approved by the city prior to installation. All exterior lighting shall be hooded or shielded so that the light source is not directly visible to any adjacent properties or public streets. So it's the light source. We don't want floodlights coming out and shining into the roads or onto the adjacent properties, and these do have to be reviewed and approved by the city. So I think that's pretty consistent language with any development that we have within the city. And then regarding the fees, that's up to this council to decide policy. We heard tonight that the fees may be too high, but, this is a competitive thing with the established businesses that have been here. There is a lot of time that the city has to do regarding, inspections, making sure that they're in compliance with 4 pages of code. So there is some justification of why the fees are at the level they've been established. I want to just stress that this ordinance is not just about the Wisconsin Avenue corridor. This is a citywide ordinance. We have food trucks all throughout the city. We have them at Whitman Park Shopping Center, the former Brennan's, the former Kmart parking lot. This is an ordinance that would regulate food trucks throughout the entire city. And the last comment I have is this is an ordinance. If it is passed, you may consider waiving a second reading tonight to move that forward. All right. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I'd like to open it for discussions or questions for Mr. Gallo. Alderman Ellis.
Yeah, he had mentioned lighting. Explain, I don't understand exactly what he said, that under this new ordinance, they cannot have lighting? What was that?
No, they can have lighting. We would review the lighting specs. What type of lighting are they having? Are they having pole lighting mounted on their buildings? And is the fixture itself going to have light coming out into the public roadways or on the properties? We would be reviewing that. So it's not that they can't have lighting, it's just lighting onto the adjacent properties we would have to review the type of lighting, and they would have to be shielded not to prevent glare onto the adjacent roadways or properties.
Alderman Kavieski.
As the council representative on Plan Commission, I've seen this come through Plan Commission twice. I know that this is a topic that you, Jason, and your department have spent a lot of time on. I would like to thank you for that amount of time to get us to where we are at. I've perused social media on occasion, and there've been some comments associated with what we're going through right now as an perceived effort that we don't like food trucks or that we're trying to penalize food trucks. And I think I can safely say that everybody on council and around here has enjoyed the food truck at some point. I love the food trucks. This is not about penalizing food trucks, whether they're on Wisconsin Avenue or anywhere else in the city. This is really about good policy and procedure to allow those food trucks to know how to operate and prosper in our community, for our community to enjoy. I just want that on the record because sometimes perception and reality of what we're trying to address don't always meet up. And I think it's really important to have that clarified, because it's my hope that with this passing and getting to a point where it can pass, that we see more here. I think the community truly does enjoy that. I have a lot with that in mind. There were a lot of comments that I made during Plan Commission. I'm going to kind of reserve some of those as other members of council insert their thoughts on that. But I just wanted to kind of kick that off that way.
Thank you. Alderman Schulpepper.
Yeah, I think when we first endeavored on this discussion, I was skeptical of the intent. I understand what Alderman Kavieski's saying, that, you know, we want to encourage food trucks, but I think at the end of the day, the public perception is we have these extremely high fees that we're looking at implementing, and they are much higher than I think what would be considered normal. So you're looking at COVID, and you're looking at small business owners, people that are already struggling, and it's this excessive burden that is perceived to be putting on them, and increasing regulation, increasing government involvement in the small business world is, I think, generally not a positive thing. The things I'm open to that I think are a good idea is bringing some uniformity to the conversation, addressing safety issues, and that's where I think our role can be, and making sure that the role and the involvement that the city and the staff need to play in making sure those topics are addressed are compensated fairly, and the fees should be scheduled and adjusted to reflect that amount of time. We're not just trying to line our pockets, you know, the city's coffers. That's not what we should be doing with this ordinance, and that's a concern I have with, I think, some of the fees as they currently stand. I'm wondering why the insurance requirement is getting crossed out because it's on private land. I don't understand, I guess I don't quite understand the logic there. I don't know if you have any kind of explanation there.
Attorney Riffle.
Well, there's no more insurance requirement because the Plan Commission recommended that these food trucks be treated like any other restaurant, and there's no restaurant that has any requirement of acquiring insurance and naming the city as a additional insured, because it doesn't seem to be any logic to that, was their logic.
Well, interesting. Well, I took a look at just doing some quick searches today, and it doesn't seem like it's completely out of the ordinary for ordinances within a city to require this sort of liability protection we were looking at. The other concern I have with the change that we made here is one of the big things we were talking about was the electrical setup and the infrastructure that was being connected to the food trucks. It seems like now we're leaving that a subjective thing that can be basically addressed by the building inspector. What was the logic there on the Plan Commission part? Why did we decide that isn't a safety issue anymore, that isn't something we need to address in the ordinance?
Well, these trucks need power to run, and the amount of options out there is limited. You know, you could have a generator, and those produce a noise issue. So they thought, well, if a safety cord, extension cords could be done in a safe manner, that would leave that option available to the people running the trucks.
Alderman Rozak.
Yeah, I've got a couple of quick questions. On page 3, there's the Western Lakes Fire District inspection. Is there an extra fee for that, or is that going to be subsumed within the fees we're going to be charging? Because brick and mortar gets a fire protection inspection.
Right.
So do you think that's going to be an extra fee on top of what else we're charging them? My guess is it would be.
Yeah, they have a separate fee schedule, and their fees are, I think, around $75.
That's kind of what I thought. So I think we should take that into account. We're not talking about fees with regard to this ordinance. I like what the Planning Commission did, which took it out and put into just a resolution so we can freely change the fees as need be. So I think that discussion's more appropriate there, and we should consider that then, considering item I on page 3. I guess the issue about lighting, to me, the lighting seems I think the way you've got it written sounds fine to me. We've got these issues. Jason and I dealt with an issue at a gas station where the lights above were shining out too far and literally glaring people on the road. And this is kind of a very similar thing. You know, if you drive by and it's shining into the road, or you've got 15 light strings hanging over the sidewalk, we're gonna say no dice, right?
Right.
So I think that's clear enough for you to enforce it. So I don't have a problem with that. As far as the insurance, I'm okay with that change. I will say that my firm had a very large food truck propane explosion in Philadelphia that killed 5 people. And they didn't have enough insurance because some of these are run by mom and pops. But it's on private property, and I don't think we require a certificate of insurance for an occupancy permit for a restaurant downtown, so I don't want to be over restrictive there. So I'm okay with
Alderman
that change.
Mulder?
Two questions about the temporary permit, or for a temporary usage. Is it the intent that if a truck is here this summer, that next, and they're temporary for 3 months, next summer they couldn't come back to the same location as a temporary?
No, they could. It says within a calendar year
Okay,
in the
within a calendar
ordinance,
year,
so
okay.
they could come back the following year.
All right, so then I'm wondering, just thinking about summer here, and, you know, if you think Memorial Day to Labor Day, that's going to be more than 90 days. Would 120 days be appropriate to make a temporary so that someone could do the full summer season? Would May 15th to September 15th roughly, just to incorporate both those holidays. A thought I had, I think it's worth considering. And then I'm really torn on the fees. $450 annually, that's less, that's $40 a month roughly. It's not a lot of rent. Now, of course, they're going to pay if you think about it as rent, it is kind of rent. You're also going to pay the property owner for the right to be there. The $1,000 up front seems a lot, $450 annually. Yeah, I don't know, I'm really torn on that, so.
Alderman Kowalski?
So I think, get this, I think Alderman Rozik's right. The fees the fees were eliminated from the ordinance and put in the resolution to give us more flexibility to have that discussion. So as we talk about the resolution, I think that's really relevant to that part of the discussion, and as opposed to the ordinance. So I would suggest that we keep that there. In regards to the insurance, this is a question. So if we were to provide the opportunity for a food truck to operate on public property for an extended time, let's say at Roosevelt Park or wherever that is, I would think we would want to see the insurance applied there because it's on public property. If it's on private property, it wouldn't apply because the city is not liable for that private property insurance.
It's a totally different deal. You're correct. I think our buddy down there, Buddies, is required to carry insurance and name us as an additional insured.
Right. So that would be the differential that I would look at in regards to requirements and why it makes sense not to have the insurance as part of the requirement on private property.
So keeping focus on the ordinance and not on the pricing. Any other comments or questions for Jason? Oh, I'm sorry. Alderman Kowalski, I thought you were done.
Yep.
Sorry.
So there is on paragraph C, prohibited locations. This is something I brought up at Planning Commission. And we have 3 classifications of food trucks, correct? We have temporary, and we have food truck court, and then we have permanent standalone. I would suggest that we take a look at incorporating in the prohibited locations, no food truck courts are permitted in or within boundaries of identified business or entertainment districts as recognized by the city for the purpose of economic development. So and this isn't the exact wording, obviously. This is in the nature of what I'd like to have the discussion on. We have a downtown district that is defined, that receives low interest loans as through the CDA to help encourage development. As a result of that, the downtown district has really become a draw, an event-driven draw, not only for our community, but for the surrounding areas. There's been millions of dollars invested by a variety of businesses in order to achieve that. You can, a food truck court in that area, I don't think is appropriate. It has a permanent nature to it. And it capitalizes on those other investments that were made both by the private entities as well as the city through those efforts. I'm totally for temporary food trucks being in those districts because I think that could enhance the draw, but not take permanent advantage of those investments that were made into the facade improvements, the interior building improvements, the amenities associated with that, such as bathrooms and common space, gathering, all of those things. So I would like to have a discussion about where food truck courts specifically are best served within the community as it applies to those areas that have seen that type of investment and have been defined by the city or by city committees, commissions, or boards.
So can you narrow that down to, it's a really broad comment that we've talked about several times.
Yep.
Can you narrow that down into what you would like to discuss, please?
So as I mentioned, the wording as it applies to paragraph C, we are prohibiting food trucks and food truck courts in specific areas in our zoning. Is that a correct statement?
Yes, residential areas, we wouldn't want one of these parked in a residential neighborhood. Mhm.
And the reason for that is not because we want to limit
Oh, it's a
competition.
non-commercial
It's just
area.
not, it's not complementary to that specific area, correct? Fair enough to
The
say?
use would not be allowed in a residential area,
Right.
yeah.
So the discussion is specific to food truck courts, not the one-off for events such as German Christmas market, not a temporary, and I like Alderman Mulder's thought of extending that from 90 days to 120 days. So you could see food trucks operate in the downtown district or in an entertainment district as defined by the city, and the city has those boundaries set up for the downtown district and is supported by the downtown Oconomowoc Business District. Those could continue to develop as our community and our city continues to develop as well. So that wording can remain general. It is not about Wisconsin Avenue, it's about those investments that occur in those areas and what is complementary to justify those investments. So I would like the consideration for council to include wording in paragraph C to limit food truck courts not in those areas.
So I'm a little confused. If I'm
Yeah, I
hearing you
don't get it.
correctly, you would like to have the downtown business district not have food court trucks, food truck courts. So you'd like to, in the exclusions, one area exclusion is a downtown business district.
Any defined business district or entertainment district. And we have a defined downtown business district, so
No,
that
we
would
have
be.
I don't know that we have an entertainment district, not
We
that I'm
don't.
aware of.
That's
But
a
we
term
may.
of art.
It's a term of what?
It's a term of art. There's specific provisions in the code that allows for financing funneled through the municipality to a entertainment district under certain circumstances. It's kind of like a tax increment district, but it's an entertainment district.
So I believe that then what you'd like to have discussion on is restricting food truck courts in the business district. Okay, so let's open it up. Alderman Zapfel.
So we're gonna tell the folks that are investing, Vanguard over at Olympia, sorry, you can't have a food court over here. Pabst Farms, you can't have a food cart over here. Say the folks over on Brown Street, oh yeah, you can have the food cart over here. you know, we're putting too much regulation here, and that's just my opinion, a socialist idea of saying, sorry, you're not allowed to do something here in your property. And we have heard in discussion here, business owner that's willing to make investments that are, I think, gonna draw people to downtown, to our restaurants, to our bars, to our stores, and spend money, because I'm one of those individuals that when I go into other communities, if I see a food cart, I'm gonna grab, whether it's a shake or a burrito or something, and then I may walk down the street, and then, oh, I'm gonna go grab myself a spotted cow, or I'm gonna go grab some cheese curds or something like that from another business, or I might buy some artwork. I don't feel comfortable with that, Alderman Kozieski, at all. We're pitting people against each other.
Alderman Ellis?
So, and it's my understanding that most of the individuals that I know populate these food courts after hours. At some point later at night, when the brick and mortars kind of close, they begin to populate them even more. I just don't see your point. What are you trying to accomplish here? Please help me. I just want to know.
Alderman Kavieski, just a response back.
Sure. So in those districts that would be defined and are currently defined, we'll use the example as a downtown business district. The food trucks aren't open after bar hours. They're not. They close, I believe, probably around 10 o'clock, which is sometimes previous to other restaurants. This is not about competition or pitting others against one restaurant against another. It's highest and best use, and what would be deemed complementary within the area that we're setting up structure to support this at. So if you're driving in the town and you see a food truck court on East Wisconsin Avenue or on Summit Avenue by Pabst Farms or by Summit, by Olympia, there's no defined business district there, and there's no defined entertainment district there. They can go there. We do have a downtown that has literally spent tens of millions of dollars to create what we currently have. And what we currently have is not by accident, it is by design. And the food truck court in that area is not complementary, in my opinion, to what we currently have. It does not limit the temporary food trucks, which could be 120 days, currently defined as 90 days, or food trucks to support those events that could liven up those events, such as the Festival of the Arts or the German Christmas Market. Food truck court is a permanent development of that property and isn't necessarily in the best interest of the community at that location or the highest and best use within that location.
Alderman Mulder.
I agree with a lot of what you're saying, Alderman Zappel. I think that there are some restaurants that might be in some way hurt, certainly wouldn't benefit from the presence of a food court. But I think that the majority of businesses downtown, including bars, since the food court would not be serving any alcohol, would benefit from that. And since the food court would go in front of the Plan Commission, we would have the ability to control what that facility looks like, and that it would rise to the level that we would want to be, quality we would want within that district. I do agree that we want to be able to control what's there. I had the privilege actually of visiting the one in Naples by chance, and I can tell you that something with that quality would fit in very well down there and would be extremely successful. And I do understand the highest and best use. That is a question. Without anything else being designated to go in that space or plans for that space, it's hard to exactly imagine what we would have go in that spot without having the owner kind of weigh in on that. I think this is, so I really do think the oversight of the food court is critical here, because I don't think it's a matter of should there be one or should there. It's a question of can we get the right one there so that it does blend in with the larger community. And I, as I said last time we discussed this, people put millions of dollars in investment all over this city, and I don't know that we protect one versus the other, because all of their investment is equal dollars to me, not just downtown versus any other place in the city.
Alderman Rogers.
I think we should do this. I think the ordinance is fair. I think that if you're going to bring a food truck in Oconomowoc, at the end of the day, a friend of mine told me if you're going to take a risk, you should have a pucker factor. Okay, so you got to pay a $1,000 fee. Really? If your product is that good, that doesn't matter. And $450 a year, so what? I don't understand why this is a complicated issue. If the landowner that owns the property presents a well-designed product, we can't say no unless you have just cause. So whatever shows up there, because they own the property, if you don't like it, then you need to buy it. So I'm not against it. These people, it's their livelihood. I can't talk about their income tax or any of that crap because that's none of my business. But if it's a good food truck, whatever flavor, I think right there is a fine place for it. I think down by Kmart's a fine place for it. I think there's ways we can do this. But it doesn't take away. We've set the fees that I feel are still probably not high enough in my opinion, but that's an opinion. But ultimately, it's going to bring a quality product. And if we do this right with the landowner, I think it's going to be a good thing. Everybody's got a business brings business. How's it going to hurt? I'm confused. Help me understand why this is a bad thing for our community to have right when you walk in the door. Because most of the time, these food trucks are really about lunch, and I'm not trying to take away from the restaurants and owners that are here. I frequent them. We all do at some level. My guys go to these food trucks probably 2-3 times a week, including me. I guess I'm confused why this conversation is going so long. I don't understand why this is as big a deal as it's become when I feel like the ordinance is fairly solid. There might be some fine details that can be drawn up or I love the discussion, but I think we're wasting a lot of time on a moot point.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
You know, originally, way back when we started talking about this so long ago, I was very sensitive to the downtown bricks and mortar individuals. But as I started looking into this more and drilling down and doing some due diligence, and even the letter we got tonight where, you know, one of the most vocal individuals from downtown, and obviously her first choice would be for them not to be there, but she's even saying if this is done right, they would, she'd be okay with that. As far as the trucks in the downtown area, I believe in capitalism, that people can come, they can do what they want with their land. As far as highest and best use, is it for us to decide what that landowner decides at that particular time, what the highest and best use for that property is? How do we dictate what they do? I don't think we have a place to do that. So I'm in support of this going forward the way it is.
Alderman Rozak.
Just a few real quick points. In section C, I'll be quick. In section C, yeah,
3 minutes.
okay,
3
3
minutes.
minutes.
We can get the clock up for you.
In section C, what's unique about what the prohibited locations are is they're all residential. What I think Alderman Kavieski is trying to propose is that we restrict commercial in a commercial area, and I don't think that makes sense. I also don't think you can apply this standard or this concept of highest and best use to an entire area or an entire ordinance like what we're proposing. Highest and best use is typically for zoning on a single parcel. that's outside of what the zoning regulations are or what's allowed currently in the zoning, and they're trying to go below that standard. So it doesn't make a lot of sense there. And I think, Karen, your point was well taken. There's not really a lot of substantial objection. I mean, if this is so bad for the downtown restaurants, I don't know why the place isn't packed with downtown restaurants telling us not to vote for this. I've talked to several owners, and I'm not going to name them all, but several owners and managers of 3 of the downtown restaurants, and they don't really have an issue. The only really big issue that I hear from the downtown business owners, the restaurants specifically, is the folks here using the bathrooms. And if we can resolve the bathroom issue at some point with something behind here or something in a food court in the future, I think most of those objections are going to be gone. And I think we've done a good job. The one last note is, we had the same discussion when I proposed the beer gardens years ago. I pushed the beer gardens, the downtown business owners, a couple of them squawked and said, you're going to steal all our business. It didn't happen. It's an unmitigated success in our downtown. It draws thousands of people from outside the area to a beer garden, and then they spread out to all the other businesses. And I think this will have some of the same effects. So,
Any further discussion? Alderman Kavieski.
Alderman Rogers, again, the fees, I'm right on board with you, but we're not dealing with the fees in this ordinance. We're going to deal with the fees in the resolution. So that's separate. I will, I'll let it go in regards to restrictions for where food truck courts can go. I will just go on record as voicing my opinion. Obviously, this is a body of 8 that needs to concur. So it is what it is. Being on Plan Commission, I thanked Mr. Harrell for bringing in the food trucks, because before they were there, they weren't anywhere. It is not an adversarial position against food trucks, and that is why I made the starting statement I did. Right. I do have exception with the number that we're looking to allow, knowing that potentially if Mr. Harrell brings forward a good quality food truck court at that location at 10 food trucks, we're limiting the city as a whole that has 17,000 plus people in it to 15, which would leave 5 more total to support the entire city. So I would suggest that we remove 15 as a max, and either leave it or let that number get a little bit bigger to allow for additional food truck courts and one-offs in other areas of the city to have an opportunity to provide their food to our community.
The recommendation from the Plan Commission on this topic was to leave it at 15, see how it goes, and adjust it in the future based on how things move forward.
Mayor, so in regards to that, again, I was there, and so are you.
Me too.
Yep. It was a great meeting. I think we all know, being on this body, getting ordinance back to a just ordinance is not always easy, timely, or the best route, which is why the fees were eliminated from the ordinance and put into resolution, because it's easier to address. So I would suggest that we get the ordinance right with the count and either raise it to 20 or eliminate the max to allow for some certainty in the market for what they can engage in.
So if you think about several of the conversations, there are some potential amendments to the current ordinance as it's written. Just want to kind of rephrase what I'm hearing. We have a comment of possibly changing the number of food courts that are allowed within city limits. Food trucks, excuse me. Yep. And the other main one was potentially expanding the temporary license from 90 days to 120 days. Those are 2 main things that I've heard, and there may be others that I've missed. Alderman Zapfel.
Jason, how many food trucks on average per year inquire about coming into Oconomowoc?
Inquiries, meaning like a phone call, I would say 2 to 3 a year.
15's
But
And
they're
there's
just kind of checking what the codes are, checking what the fees are, you know, where can they go, those types of things. It doesn't necessarily mean they have a spot in mind, they just are doing a blank call.
And how many permits do you have issued at the moment?
4 active ones right now.
Thank you.
Alderman Kavieski.
I believe there's been a hold on entertaining any additional food trucks over the last several months as we are developing this policy and moving forward. Is that correct?
I told people that we're in the midst of adopting an ordinance, and, right.
Right. So in regards to the number of active permits that we have, there's kind of been a stall on any additional ones. Could there have been over the last, let's say, 6-7 months? Because I believe we put a soft hold on that in the fall of last year. There could have been. And again, the reason that this is coming to council now for consideration is because it is a growing area of inquiry and demand, and is our job to provide that policy as it continues to grow. So to say that we only have 4, and there's only 3 or 4, we don't have policy that really embraces it right now. This policy will embrace the food trucks in our community, and I am all for it. We just need to get it right.
I'd like to entertain a motion. Alderman Rozak.
I'd like to actually first make a motion. Do you want me to make the primary motion or amend first? I guess I can do it either way.
Amendment first would
Let
be
me
best.
make an amendment pursuant to something that Lou said before, which is adding back in section D5, and we'll leave the entire certificate of insurance language in there, except at the end it says shall be provided if the food truck is located on public property.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Give me 1 second.
Excuse me, I don't have the ordinance in front of me, but I believe they're not permitted on public property.
Correct.
Right, they're not
So
permitted.
that would be superfluous.
Actually,
Except under special events.
Right.
Prohibited locations on page 1, C, it says prohibited locations, they're not allowed to sell, park, or operate on any public sidewalk, public park, public street, or any other publicly owned land, unless in conjunction with an approved special event permit. So,
We probably don't need it then, I
You
guess.
don't need it.
Draw my second.
Yeah, I'll withdraw the motion then. Good point, Stan, thanks.
So amendment has been
Nice job, Stan.
withdrawn. I'd like to entertain any other motions. Alderman Kavieski.
I'd like to make a motion to amend and change the total number of food trucks or mobile food shops within our city from 15 to 20.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Second by you, Chaz?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I have to take. Okay, calling roll. Alderman Ellis.
Nay.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Nay.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Zappel.
Nay.
Passes.
Do I have any other motions to entertain? Alderman Mulder.
I'd like to make an amendment to extend the temporary use permit from 3 months to 4 months, so that's 120 consecutive days.
I'll
Second.
that.
Second by Spiegelberg. Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Zappel.
Aye.
I'd like to entertain a motion on the original ordinance unless there's another amendment that needs to be brought up.
I'd like to, like you to consider an amendment to paragraph K, which is to prohibit alcohol and tobacco sales. I'd like to include services and products other than food. During Plan Commission, we talked about that. I don't know if this is an appropriate place to put that because we're going to deal with that as a separate ordinance, and for now, at least, it would give some clarity in regards to what is and what is not allowed.
I have to look at the draft ordinance again. I thought that we defined what a food truck is,
Food truck.
and it does not include those things,
Definition of a food truck.
but I'll look again.
But we still have paragraph K, which calls out alcohol and
Let me look,
tobacco.
let me look.
It
Yeah,
calls out
Stan,
something.
the definition is a food truck is something that's brought to a site for the purpose of selling, preparing, or displaying food items.
Right.
So I
Then, which is cool, then
Doesn't
why,
include anything else.
then we should strike alcohol and tobacco, right?
Well, you can leave
No,
out
you
the
can't.
tobacco.
You can't sell alcohol or tobacco from a food
You
truck.
can't. It's a moot point.
So strike it.
why?
Why?
It's part of the ordinance to say that you cannot sell tobacco.
Right.
We're saying they can't sell alcohol or tobacco.
Out of a
Right.
food truck.
So why can't we say that you cannot sell other services and products other than food?
Because our focus of this is only the food trucks.
I think it's gonna be in his discretion probably, because if it's defined as selling, preparing food, and they start selling T-shirts.
Yeah.
You know, there's a whole huge T-shirt, truck now. I think he's gonna say, sorry, guys, we don't allow that.
Where?
Well, you don't fit your definition.
I don't think we, yeah, I think you can go back to the definition. Yeah,
It'll come up.
huh.
That's kind of a good point.
Alderman
T-shirts,
Mulder?
hats.
It'll come up.
I agree.
Jason, once this goes to Plan Commission, it does not come to council for approval if it's a food truck court?
That's correct.
Glad it doesn't.
Well, no, I
Wish
just
it
said,
would.
If there's a food truck court that is proposed, we're gonna have to create a whole new ordinance. Because a food court will involve a permanent station where there will be a sale of alcohol. There will be bathrooms there. We're gonna have to do a whole new ordinance. This is just for food trucks.
But
No,
but
we
it
have food truck
addresses
courts
food
in
truck
here.
courts. It doesn't address permanent alcohol, but,
It says you can't sell alcohol from a food truck.
right, but the court wouldn't necessarily have to do that.
That's true. You're gonna have to create, in my opinion, you're gonna have to create a new ordinance in your zoning code for food courts. You agree?
For a food court, not a
Food
truck.
court, not a truck.
A food truck court is what I'm saying.
Okay, food truck court, yes. Need a new ordinance.
Well,
Yeah.
Isn't it in this ordinance, food truck?
it's in this ordinance
No, it's in
already.
Food truck is in this
No
ordinance,
food truck
not a
court.
food truck court.
The court is in the ordinance too. At the beginning,
Yeah, I
it's
think the court
defined.
is in there.
It's actually defined, so we're starting to really go into circles,
Yeah.
guys. We need to get ourselves focused.
So, I'm of the opinion, if I can,
Mobile food
Call the
trucks.
question.
There you go, do it again.
Yeah.
Call the
Guys,
question.
attention, please. Alderman Mulder?
so I'm of the opinion that if we're going to put in a 10-truck food truck court at 212 Wisconsin Avenue, that this council should vote on that, not just have it go to Plan Commission for approval. I think that is a significant, and I don't know if that's an amendment I should make. It is
Open
an
that for
amendment I will make,
discussion.
that for a food truck court, after it goes to Plan Commission, it comes to council for approval. That is in,
Page 2, at the bottom, number 3,
number
it says
3.
food court shall go to the Plan Commission. If you'd like to change it to council, I was thinking the
I think
Plan
it-
Commission is a better suited body for this. They review plans and they, are specialized in that type of review. But if you'd like this to come to the council to talk about site plans and location requirements and things, we can certainly change that, but it's more the expertise of the Plan Commission.
Start with plan and go to council.
Right.
that's what I'm saying. Start with plan and then go to council.
Final approval.
So make that amendment that approved by Plan Commission, forwarded to council for final approval.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis?
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
Aye.
Alderman Mulder?
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper?
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski?
Aye.
Alderman Rogers?
Aye.
Alderman Rozak?
Aye.
Alderman Zappel?
Aye.
Like to entertain a motion for the original food truck ordinance, please, as amended.
One more amendment?
Oh, jeez.
This is, you can consider it
We've been
or
working
not.
on this since October. Okay, Alderman Kowiecki, go ahead.
This- So we have signage considered. I'm okay with that verbiage. I would consider any additional signage must be reviewed and approved through architectural committee, which is what any other restaurant would need to do. So my suggestion for amendment would be for Q, wording to be added, any additional signage must be reviewed and approved through architectural committee.
So this ordinance was carefully crafted so that these things do not get crazy signage and be expressly limited to the signage that is in the ordinance. So now you're opening it up for someone to come in and say, hey, I want, a lot more. So just so you know.
Well, you got food truck court, you're gonna, all right. You're gonna say a food truck court's not gonna have signage outside of the trucks and sandwich boards, is what you're saying.
Well, right now, the way
Right now, we're talking about food trucks, though. We're not dealing with a food truck court. That's a different conversation.
And that has to be approved by planning and council now, and that will include everything as part of the plan. And signage right now says, signage shall be limited to the area on the truck, the stand, and one sandwich board. That's all they're allowed. And so
All right.
I think Stan's right that you don't want to open it up to more review,
It's
because
gonna
then
come
they'll
up.
ask for something bigger,
It's
is
gonna
my
come
thought.
up.
Any further discussions? Like to entertain a motion to approve the ordinance with the approved amendments.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis?
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
Aye.
Alderman Mulder?
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper?
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski?
Nay.
Alderman Rogers?
Aye.
Alderman Rozak?
Aye.
Alderman Zappel?
Aye.
Waive the second reading?
Yeah, do you want to?
I want to
waive
make a
this?
motion to waive the second reading.
Second.
Then I
Any
gotta
further
get there.
discussion? Call roll, please.
Yep, no, I got to get there yet.
Oh, Diane, I'm sorry, Diane.
Make it up.
I got to do all these things.
That's okay.
So that was Ellis and
Ellis.
Spiegelberg. All right. All righty, I'm there, wave.
Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis?
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
Aye.
Alderman Mulder?
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper?
You want?
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski?
Nay.
Alderman Rogers?
Aye.
Alderman Rozak?
Aye.
Alderman Zappel?
Aye.
Okay, let's move on to the consider act on resolution 21-R2943, creating a food truck permit fee. I'd like to start off first with comments from City Attorney Riffle.
I'm going to make this really, really simple. Alderman Shellpepper is absolutely correct. Municipal fees must approximate, within reason, the actual cost of dealing with permits. So, if you are looking at these numbers, the question to our planner is, do you think for the time period that you're going to be dealing with these facilities, either on a 4-month temporary basis, you're going to likely, in a grand spectrum of things, over years with a lot of different units and a lot of different permits, expend $450 worth of staff time when you take into account complaints, when you take into account, having to enforce the regulations, go out and inspect, do all of that. If you think, and you can, truthfully say, yeah, $450, no brainer.
I think these fees are spot on.
Then it's $400 or $500, whatever it was. And if it's $1,000 for a year, and you have to deal with that for a year with complaints and, dealing with making sure that they're cleaning up their stuff, that they're, utility inspection and all that stuff. If you think that that is reasonable based upon the actual cost of providing city services, then you're good.
Yes. keep in mind, my billable rate is $140 per hour, so.
God, I don't even get that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's a half hour for you.
Not true.
Want me to comment on
Really?
that?
At 350, 450, Stan?
Take that into my account, you know, $500, that's, you know, 4 hours of my time. These are spot-on fees.
Okay.
I don't think it's being abusive to the tenant, and I don't think it's being cheap to the taxpayer as well. I think it's a very equitable amount.
Alderman Kavieski.
I'm gonna not be in favor of the fees, not because I think the fees are too high, not because I don't think they're appropriate, but because there's nothing in here that addresses fees for a food truck court, and we address food truck court in the ordinance.
Per truck.
It's per truck.
It's per truck, so if
Understand,
there's
but as
5
a
trucks,
food
you would have
truck-
to pay each one.
Sure.
Yep.
So let me understand this as a question then. If I have a 10 food truck court, each truck is gonna pay $1,000 a year for that year, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And if,
The initial application.
as a manager of that food truck court, I don't think that they're complementary to what I'm trying to develop, and they're not bringing in the kind of traffic I want to see, I can remove them from my food truck court as the manager of that property, right?
It's a private entity. they
So
can do
I would
whatever
have,
they
to.
want.
You'd have to issue another one-year permit. We're not giving the flexibility. I'm not about over-regulating or over-penalizing, but you're not providing the tools to manage the food truck court as a food truck court. You're applying individual food trucks or food trucks outside of a food truck court. They're two different things.
So are you thinking there should be an additional management fee for a court beyond what we're charging for the trucks?
What I'm saying is, again, in my opinion, if you have a 10 food truck court, that there should be $10,000 worth of fees associated with that court. And they can move in and out those they can move in and out food trucks to ensure the success of the food truck court as they feel the market requires it, right? So
But
it could be.
that's what they have to do for management. That's not our issue.
Well, it is our issue, the way that we have the fee set up.
Are you saying that we should be charging the food truck court owner the $10,000 rather than $1,000 to each of 10 trucks?
Correct, and then let them move in and out as they need to manage it.
No, they pay property taxes.
I see, so
Alderman Rozak.
there's a little bit of a quandary here. So if you get a food court going, right, and they've got a permanent guy that comes in and pays his $1,000, but they kick him out after 2 months because he's not bringing in traffic. He just ate the 1,000, someone else can come in. And so the way we have this written, it sounds to me like our food truck fee doesn't go to the property, goes to the owner of that food truck, is the way I interpret our statute and ordinance. So I can see that being a problem. That's not necessarily our problem, though.
No, it's not, because,
Alderman Rogers.
I'm not trying to be coy, I'm just saying.
no, but hold on.
It's a quandary.
So if I rent and I have to get a conditional use permit to do my job, and I don't make it more than 2 months, the next person has to pay to get their own conditional use permit to move into that same location. So what's the difference?
It's a
Can't
food truck
transfer my
permit.
conditional use permit to the next person so they can do their job, and it is what it is. You're taking the gamble. You're the business owner. You're renting from a private entity.
Right.
No.
Alderman Kavieski.
So if I'm cutting hair and I'm renting a stall in a salon and I'm removed, I didn't pay for the entire year probably to be at that salon, right? Kind of
Fair.
the same thing with a food truck court. They're
But I
not
didn't pay
paying by
for a
the month,
year.
they're paying for a year, and they could be.
That's a
we're not-
one-time fee.
Well, shouldn't the property owner or the owner of that permit deal with that in his or her lease?
Correct.
Transferable, right?
No.
Right.
Just like my conditional use permit is
No, but I mean, if you're
transferable.
kicked out, you negotiate with the landlord that he or she has to pay you back, the pro rata share.
If you get kicked out early or something.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
here we are, government telling private people what to do.
No.
And we
No.
And we shouldn't.
No.
I'd like to entertain a motion.
So I'll move to accept the resolution as written.
Second.
Any further discussion? Alderman Shellpepper.
I'm voting against it. I still think the fees are too high. I think you have testified that you feel they are reasonable for the time that you put in, and I appreciate that, and I believe your assessment, but at the same time, I don't think we should be imposing additional fees and restrictions and hardships on small businesses right now. So I'm going to vote against it still, but I believe that the fees you are identifying are reasonable according to the time you need to put in.
Any further comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Nate?
Alderman Kavieski.
Nay.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Zappel.
Aye.
Moving on, consider act on extraterritorial survey, certified survey map to divide lot into 3 lots and an outlot on Nelson Road in the town of Oconomowoc. Mr. Gallo.
This is a certified survey map that was submitted to the city to divide one lot into 3 parcels that would be buildable, plus an outlot. And as you mentioned, it's on Nelson Road. It's in the town of Oconomowoc, but it's within our extraterritorial plating area. It's about a half a mile to the closest city boundary. And they did something that we typically don't even see. They submitted very detailed grading plans and building envelopes of where the homes would go. All the driveways would be independent to each home, would have their own separate driveway, and they would all come out onto Nelson Road. There's a little bit of unique lot shapes because this parcel does have a considerable amount of wetlands on it, and they wanted to work with Waukesha County and see where their area is perked out for on-site systems, and they show those areas in their plans, and they wanted to preserve as much wetland as possible, which will be dedicated to the town of Oconomowoc. Plan Commission did review this. They recommend approval of this certified survey map, and it should be noted that we did not do a formal technical review. Staff thought there's other people looking at this, so we didn't have to do that.
I'd like to entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Zappel.
Aye.
Moving on, consider act on extraterritorial survey map combining 2 lots into 1 located at North 53, West 35994, Lake Drive, Town of Oconomowoc. Mr. Gallo.
Another certified survey map in the town of Oconomowoc. This one is less than a quarter mile from our closest boundaries, which is out there on Brown Street. They would like to combine 2 lots into 1. It's currently a vacant site other than a shed. They would like to build a house on it. They went in and they talked to the town and the Waukesha County, and they were required to combine the 2 lots. The dimensions on this lot are a little different than what the county mapping program says, is because there has been some dedications made along both Brown Street and Lake Drive, and I have written documentation that that's been taken care of. So it is actually a very accurate certified survey map. The Plan Commission did recommend approval of this, and you were actually received a copy of the Waukesha County letter as well. The Plan Commission recommends this to you for approval this evening.
I'd like to entertain a motion.
So moved, Zaffel.
Second, Ellis.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Zappel.
Aye.
Thank you, Jason. On to appointments with council confirmation. So you'll find on page 101 of your packets a list of reappointments and new appointments. Just like to thank Aldermans Zapfel and Rozak, who worked hard to try to bring some new people into the city. Appreciate your work to try to help find volunteers. And for those of you in the audience that are up for appointment, thank you very much as volunteers for our community. We really appreciate those efforts. So we have a couple different ways we can approach this. They can be approached as one vote an item on all items, or if you want to pull out or talk to any of those potential applicants, we can pull those out ahead of time. I'll leave that up to council. Alderman Shellpepper.
Yeah, I'd like to, I mean, in general, I'm fine with voting on all of them together. The only one I want to pull out to discuss individually is for the Police Commission, Don Weimer.
Any other comments from the group? Anyone else to pull out? I'd like to, again, thank those that are moving forward. I'd like to entertain a motion for all of the council appointments in one batch, and then remove the Police Commission appointment for discussion afterwards.
So moved.
Second.
second.
Any further discussion on those? And again, folks that came, thank you very much. Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Zappel.
Aye.
Moving on, I know Mr. Weimer, Don Weimer is here in the audience. Thank you, sir, for coming. If you have any questions, we'll open up discussion on the appointment to the Police Commission of Don Weimer. Alderman Shellpepper.
Commissioner Weimer, I appreciate you being here tonight and spending the last 2 hours sitting here and listening to the other things that we're discussing. Appreciate you staying till the end. I've served with you for the last year on the Police Commission, and so that's why I'd like to personally discuss your appointment in front of the council. What we're discussing tonight is your confirmation for reappointment to the Police Commission. We're not talking about if you're a good guy or a great community member. You're those things. We're not talking about if you support our police department and you support our community. You fit all those bills. You are incredibly accomplished and recognized and appreciated for the services you have done for our community. I'm here to discuss specifically substantive policy-related issues as it pertains to the decisions and votes you've cast as a member of the Police Commission over the past year. And so there's 3 exceptions, and I shouldn't say not only the votes, but factors that directly connect to your voting as well on the Police Commission. And so there's 3 concerns that I have. The first is you're currently also serving as the village administrator for the village of Oconomowoc Lake. In that capacity, it's my understanding you're also involved with, or at least you're in the know in terms of the hiring and firing of police officers. That also replicates your duties that are associated with the Police Commission in the city of Oconomowoc. I just inherently see that as being a professional conflict to some level. Whether or not, you know, how you feel about it is one thing, but in terms of the vote that I'm gonna cast to confirm your reappointment, I take issue with it in terms of how can you be looking out for both the best interest of the city of Oconomowoc and an adjacent neighboring community, such as the village of Oconomowoc Lake. So that's number one. Number two.
Alderman, would you like him to hit one each time and just respond? Would that help you?
No.
Okay, you
I'm
want to
not
go through all
asking
3?
any questions, yeah. So.
Okay, I
you can-
misinterpreted. Okay.
Yeah, so number 2 is you went out of your way to exclude a lawfully appointed and confirmed member, an ex officio, non-voting member of the Police Commission from being involved in the hiring of the police chief. And I just, as a commission member, that's far beyond your scope of duties. We have a very, very plainly stated ordinance in the city of Oconomowoc as to who sits on the Police Commission. And it's section 137 sub 2. It plainly states who sits on the commission. It just says one member is non-voting. It doesn't say that member is not allowed to participate in the hiring of a police chief. It doesn't say anything of the sort. And so I just think you went far beyond the scope of your duties in trying to exclude that ex officio non-voting member. It's just another issue I have, a substantive issue with the decisions that you've made on the council. And then lastly is just been I feel like the progress, the analysis of redoing our procedures, our policies as a commission. I think the statement you made at the last council meeting specifically was, well, there's a reason these policies have been in place for 30 years and we essentially shouldn't question them because they were there for a reason, and why, if they're there for a reason, why would we change that? And so that just cuts against what I feel like is and what I believe I am representing my constituents in the city and what they feel like is in the best interest of not only the community as a whole, but the police department. We should always be trying to improve. We should always be trying to do better. Just because things are going well doesn't mean we can't do better. And so that's why that's the third issue I have. And I think they're all substantive issues. They're all related directly to the police commission. Like I said, you're an excellent community member. You have selflessly served. You're putting yourself out here to serve again. And regardless of what happens, whether I'm on the commission or not, whether you are, I'm happy to work with you in the future. If you get reappointed and reconfirmed, I'm going to work with you just the same whether I'm on it or not. But this is just substantive, policy-based. I guess we all get held accountable for decisions we made one way or another. And that's why I am opposed to confirming your reappointment, and I encourage the other members to also oppose. Thank you.
Mr. Weimer, would you like to respond?
In regards to your first concern about the conflict of interest, when Mayor...
I say it was a conflict of interest. I didn't say that. I said it was a professional conflict.
Well, excuse me. I'm sorry. I was asked by Mayor Nold if I would be interested in coming on the Police and Fire Commission, and I said yes. At that point, when he asked me, I had completed 44 years of employment with the Village of Oconomowoc Lake, and I was retired. And I remained retired for 2.5 years. And as of December of this year, my replacement decided to retire, which left the village without a police chief, village administrator, and zoning administrator. So the village board asked if I would come back in the interim to fill in for police, or for village administrator and zoning inspector. I didn't want to do law enforcement. I'm getting too old. If I would get knocked on my butt, I couldn't pick myself up anymore. I wanted nothing to do with law enforcement. So I'm on a short-term employment with the village. We do have the administrator right now hired. I am tutoring him, and the goal, he has 3 months in. Monday night at the board meeting, we evaluated his progress, and I assume he will take the full title in 3 months. And that will leave me with the zoning. I don't know what the board's gonna do with that. I don't think they want me to leave because of my experience, but that's up to my village board.
So you're saying in 3 months, you'll be completely cut out of any sort of hiring or analysis as it pertains to police department of the Village of Oconomowoc Lake?
But your analysis is wrong. When we hired our police chief, that was strictly up to the village board. I was not involved, our new chief, my replacement, or not, I'm sorry, not my replacement. The chief that replaced me, he retired, and that was strictly up to the board, and that was a hire from within.
Right. Well, I'm not concerned about the police chief. I'm concerned about rank and file officers as well.
I don't
We're all
get-
recruiting from the same pool.
do-
So you've never known about in advance about a police officer that we are trying to hire as a city of Oconomowoc that also might be hired at the
Oh,
village?
definitely.
Okay.
I definitely, because there's so few officers out there. It's a rat race trying to get these people hired.
And I think that's a
But,
conflict.
but it's very difficult. But yes, I am aware because we all work out of the same building, but there is no, you have to trust me on this, but there's no conflict between my position as village administrator in the Police and Fire Commission. In fact, the first 2 years that I was on the commission, I think we had 2 or 3 meetings. That was it.
We've had a lot.
You know, and Margie had said some years they didn't meet for a year. It was just this last 6 months, the hiring of Chief Pfister and the promotions has been quite a few meetings. So I just disagree with you that I don't see a conflict there, and I think I'm professional enough to abstain if there was a conflict there. The other question,
Excluding a lawfully appointed and confirmed ex
yes.
officio non-voting
right,
member on the
right.
police commission from
Correct.
participating in the hiring of a police chief.
Right. We had an opinion from the city council, the commission did, that it was okay for a city alderman to be on the police and fire commission. And our labor attorney, Ron Stadler, didn't quite agree with that. So that was the discrepancy we had in that discussion. But my opinion was only one of 5.
Well, I'm voting on your confirmation.
I understand that, but I wasn't the one and sole vote on that. Obviously, the other 4 members felt it inappropriate at that point for you to be there. Now, I have my own personal opinion on a city council member being on the police and fire commission, on the police commission, but that's a city policy.
You're entitled to that opinion, too. You're a citizen, I mean, so you're entitled to that opinion. I just think it's outside the scope of your duties as a commissioner to be weighing in objectively and professionally on that discussion. The way you would do it is to come here and provide a public comment and say what you think is right or wrong, not try to do it during a process with a lawfully appointed ex officio non-voting member, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was the last?
The policies and procedures.
Oh, I think you're totally wrong on your take on me. You brought that up, and we digested that, and I don't think there was any opposition on the police commission to not look at policies and procedures. My comment was, you misstated what I said.
What did you say?
My comment was, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And this commission, from what I understand, has operated for 20, 30 years under some format that was non-written that we were aware of that worked. And I see it, 15 years on the school board, I see people get on committees, they get on boards, and they want to reinvent the wheel. And I'm just saying, just settle down. We do things right. We maybe can do things better, but there's a process for that. And at our last meeting, it was unanimous that the full commission is in agreement of pursuing a policy and procedure manual for us to follow. And this is why it's needed. When we sat down for the meeting on the police chief, thank God Margie had sat through a previous hiring of a chief. None of us have. So what do we do? How do we do it? What's the process? There was none there other than Margie's experience, and we kind of developed that, and we came up with a plan and we followed it on the hiring. But for promotions, for discipline, we should have policies.
Yeah,
I
agree with you.
nobody disagrees with you on
But
that.
how come it didn't happen in the 2.5 years prior then, that you were
Well,
sitting
as I said, the first 2 years, we had 1 or 2 meetings.
That's the opportunity to do it, but
and
I appreciate your response.
And
I
I'm
just
still in a
disagree.
learning curve, and I'm not driving the bus on that commission. So that's why, but I think we heard you loud and clear, and I think the whole board commission's in agreement. I've done some preliminary work, and I think we're gonna come up with a great product. And, and it's gonna really benefit the community and your hires and your employees. If they know they get in trouble, this is the process.
That's right.
Alderman Rozak?
Yeah, Mr. Weimer, you can sit down. You don't have to,
Okay.
you don't have to stand up. I just have a few general comments. First, I'm glad Chaz pulled this one out because I did want to talk about it. Mr. Weimer, like what Mr. Shellpepper said, thank you for your service. You've been a community member for years. And being on these commissions can be hard work, right? And it subjects you to scrutiny based on past votes. And I have attended nearly every single police commission for the last year, year and a half that I could attend that wasn't in closed session. And I have concerns about the commission process. I have voiced those concerns to the chair of the commission. You and other members have seen some of my emails voicing those concerns about the process. And I think there's a chance for us to move forward and to look for some new candidates for this role in an attempt to move the commission into a different direction. First, I've got kind of 3 general points. There was another qualified candidate for this position that did apply. He was in your packet. His name was Danny Day. He has significant federal law enforcement experience as well as, master's degrees and other things and a commitment to the community. And I guess I think it's important for us to consider new people when they come up. And not saying the mayor made a bad call, because I think Mr. Weimer's done a lot of service and obviously spent a lot of time on the police force. So I'm not necessarily saying that he is the guy, but there was another qualified candidate. And just like our council did many years ago when I first got on, we started changing the council. People that had been on and involved for decades are all gone. And we created very, very significant changes in the city. We fixed a lot of stuff. We did just to name a few, RFP changes, the inspection changes, and the appraisal changes. And those were things that were opposed by all of the people that had been here for decades and generations. And we made those changes, and that was a good thing because people moved on and they went to new roles. My second point is that the policies and procedures on hiring is a big deal. And whether it was 2.5 years or 30 years, it hasn't been addressed. It's only now being addressed after the fact, after we hired a new police chief and promoted everyone internally. Now we're going to look at the policies and procedures. We had nothing in writing. And look, the policies and procedures are a great thing. It protects the community and it protects the police officers. And it ultimately creates a less political process, both internally political and externally political. And I talked to Mr. Weimer before. Actually, we talked twice. I really appreciate you taking my call. We talked a lot about some of these issues. Mr. Weimer has expressed an interest in moving forward with policies and procedures in the future. But it was that comment that kind of struck me a couple meetings ago, is if it's not broke, don't fix it. The problem is what the attorney said at that meeting was that policies and procedures protects us from suits. And it protects the cops and it protects the city because it creates those procedures. And the idea and concept of having official policies and procedures did not emanate from this commission, did not emanate from people that had years and years of experience doing this, and emanated from me and Alderman Shellpepper. And to have it happen after all the hirings are done is too little too late. I guess the last point is we had this hiring round where we hired the new chief, and we knew at that point when that occurred, 6 to 8 months ago, that we didn't have anything written down. We had an ad hoc in someone's head what our kind of previous policies and procedures were. After that occurred, I had hoped that the commission, without my involvement, would have started moving forward with policies and procedures so that when we promoted captains and lieutenants and sergeants, whether internally or externally, that we would do that. And one of the things that happened in the hiring process of the current chief was many members of the commission, including Mr. Weimer, spoke out against looking outside of our police department. And I think Chief Pfister's doing a great job. He's a great chief. But the point was we have to look outside as well to qualify and to make sure we're always getting the best and brightest. And we did that ultimately, and that was the ultimate vote, but there were members of the commission that spoke out against that, and I think that's a mistake. Bottom line is a new member can bring a fresh look, can bring oversight, and it's something that's best for our community and the commission. This commission is probably our top 4 most important. Planning, fire commission, police commission, and maybe CDA that are not, the council. And I think we need to put some thought into this. That police commission has hiring, firing, and discipline duties, and I hope, Mr. Weimer, if you do get reappointed tonight, reconfirmed, that you guys will really dig deep into these policies and procedures, because this is a big deal. It's something that should have been addressed decades ago. It should have been addressed 2.5 years ago. And that's why I won't be voting for your confirmation, sir.
Any other comments from council? Any response from you, Mr. Weimer? Oh, I'm sorry. Alderman Rogers.
I think maybe not as many words, but I will say, when I hear if it ain't broke, don't fix it, I understand that. I come in the car game. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But when it comes to running a business, complacency is another way to say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I'm not okay with that. You don't have to rewrite anything. But if you're not making an effort to try to make things better, then it's time for you to maybe just walk away feeling strong that your service was phenomenal for the moment that you gave it, and let somebody new bring some new stuff in. I appreciate everything that's been done by you through and through, because I'm sure that somehow you've probably touched my life in a roundabout way personally, but on top of it, I can't comfortably go, I'm gonna stand behind if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I can't do that in the world that we swim in. It's not okay, especially in light of all the hiring and the, 2 officers that chose to leave and move on with their lives in my community that I represent. I need something stronger than that, so I can't go there one more round. I gotta get something fresh, something that's gonna help make this a better process overall.
I'll make one comment. I looked at all the applicants. The one that you referenced, I spent 2 hours with that gentleman. Really nice guy, has a lot of things to offer in the future. I spent a lot of time, more than I ever thought I would, trying to figure out this appointment because of some of the concerns that were shared well ahead of me making this appointment. I can categorically say that I think this is the right person at the right time for this job. I fully respect that you agree or disagree with it. I have no problem with that. But I want the council to know that I did a boatload of due diligence on this. This was not just, oh, I'm just going to reappoint somebody. And it was also something that was very obvious was going to be a battle. And it was one of those things I'm willing to fight for, and that's why I brought him forward. And I think that the wonderful thing, Mr. Weimer, however things go, thank you, sir, for your service. And I think applaud the council for your very positive professional approach in this. And I would like to call for a vote unless there's further questions. Alderman Kowiecki.
I also would like to thank you for your service. I've gotten a chance to talk to you a couple of times, but not as much over the last week. The discussion that council confirmation means something. It is not a rubber stamp, because we do put our names on that confirmation, and we do represent constituents within the city. So it should be thoughtful, and I appreciate that conversation over the course of the week, as well as with Margie. Understanding what the role of the police commission is, and the hiring, the firing, and the discipline, and that is not supposed to be, nor I think are we making it a political arena. It is supposed to be non-political for a reason. And it is best served, I think, as Alderman Rozek mentioned, that you can eliminate the political nature associated with the hiring, firing, and discipline with good policy and procedure. It becomes very transparent and very clear, not just for the commissioners as they come and go based on their confirmation, but for the community and the officers that rely on those policies and procedures to protect them as well as the community and our citizens. We've had conversation associated with those policies and procedures and the development of those, both between you and I and between Margie and I. I believe it is the most pressing thing that you currently have in front of you as you represent the police commission and our community, and all of that weight that it provides. I think you will probably get confirmed here tonight. I think the discussion, if you get confirmed, hopefully, between the two of you, you will take that back to the commission and make sure that those policies and procedures are well thought out, that there is no policy and procedure that is not considered because if it ain't broke, don't fix it, that they all are looked at to ensure the best quality that our community deserves and really demands from anybody that this city provides for it. So again, I do thank you for your time and your dedication, not only to this community through city service, but through the school board and the surrounding areas. It's been a pleasure to get to know you a little bit better this week.
Alderman Zaffel.
This is for council, but Mr. Weimer, thank you for your service to our community at this point, but I just got some questions of a clarification here. Couple things here, council, is if he were to withdraw his appointment, how would we move forward? If the appointment is voted down, how would we move forward? Would he still serve? Or if we tabled this for future?
If he's not confirmed, he will continue to serve until a new appointment is made.
Any further questions, comments? Call roll, please. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see. Alderman.
Do not see me.
Oh, no.
No comment.
Just leave it alone.
Alderman Ellis.
I want to thank you so much for your dedication and loyalty to Oconomowoc. I've known you for a good couple of years now, and I have a lot of respect for what you do. I think this is kind of an eye-opener for you. Understanding that whatever happens going forward, that change has to be made on several levels. And this body is going to hold whoever takes that spot accountable. You've done a lot for this community. You've done a lot for the village. You've done a lot for the city. And I really do appreciate that. I'm a man of very few words, but I will say this. I respect the hell out of you.
Further comments before a vote? I'm just making sure I don't miss anybody. Any further comments from you, Mr. Weimer? Thank you. Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Now, the vote that I'm casting is if I say
Aye
aye.
is
If you say
in,
aye,
no is
approve it.
not.
Right.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Nay.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Nay.
Alderman Kavieski.
Nay.
Alderman Rogers.
Nay.
Alderman Rozak.
Nay.
Alderman Zaffel.
Nay.
Thank you, sir. We really appreciate it. And please don't take it personally. Thank you. Moving on, we have the election of the council president, vice president of the council, and then on to the council representative to the plan commission. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Cohen.
Thank you, Your Honor. What I've put in at your stations are 3 separate little paperclip packets. One is for council president, one is for vice president, and one is for the plan commission representative. So you'll be voting on those once nominations are received. So basically, at this time, we're looking for nominations for the council president. So I need, as many as there are going to be, but that's up to you. But each alderman is allowed to make 1 nomination, and then we'll go from there.
So am I writing it or am I telling?
Nominations right now are, you're making basically a nomination, a motion to nominate someone. And then that, when you vote, you're just going to write their name on the slip of paper, whichever one, like if there's 2 or 3 candidates, or nominations, I should say, then you're going to write the one you want to vote for. And then the majority, if we get a majority, that's the person who will be the president. And if it's kind of a 3-way tie, let's say, then we're going to go at it and you've got 3 kicks at it.
Okay. So this is just for president right now, in other words?
Yeah, right now we're just taking nominations for president.
I'll nominate Matt Rosick.
Second.
I didn't hear who said second.
Bell pepper.
Oh, thank you. I can't tell sometimes. Okay, are there any other nominations for president? Okay, hearing none. We have 1 nomination for president, Alderman Rosick, and we can take the vote on that.
Thanks, guys.
Do it on paper. You don't need to use your paper, only because
Don't vote for Mickey Mouse.
it was
then.
only 1 individual who was nominated for president. So, but I will do roll call on that. And, let me just type in. There we go. All right, Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Yes.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye, but can I ask that he reduces his word usage by 20%?
Thank you.
Aye.
Can I have to make a motion?
Second.
Or how do I do it?
Alderman
Self?
Rosick, you can vote for yourself.
Sure.
If you want. Okay. And Alderman Zaffel.
Aye.
All righty. Okay.
Thank you, everyone, for the acclamation. I appreciate it.
All right. So next is Council Vice President, and we are open for nominations.
I'd like to nominate Karen Spiegelberg for that position.
Second.
I'd like to nominate, or are we doing another
Yep,
nomination?
yes, you
I'd like
may.
to nominate Luke Kavieski for the position.
I appreciate that. I'd like to not
Decline.
accept that nomination.
I'm sorry, you would like to or not?
Not.
Not. Decline?
Thank you, Lou.
Okay.
If nominated, you will not run. If elected, you will not serve.
Okay. Are there any other nominations?
I know, but it's going.
Okay, so hearing none, Alderman Spiegelberg has been nominated for the position of Council Vice President. And I'll take roll in 1 second. All righty. So I will take roll call on that. Alderman Ellis.
Absolutely.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Sure.
Alderman Mulder.
Enthusiastically.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Also very enthusiastically, nothing
No,
against
no.
you. I'm very
None-
happy to vote for you,
No,
so.
none taken.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't ever worry about that.
Sorry, okay.
Yeah.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Rosick.
Yes.
Alderman Zappel.
Aye.
Okay. Now we're moving on to the selection of the Plan Commission representative.
I'd like to
So-
nominate Matt Mulder for Plan Commission.
Shellpepper second.
Are there any other nominations for rep to Plan Commission? Okay, hearing none. Let me do this. So I'll take roll on that. We didn't even need the slips of paper. Look at how efficient you
Save it for
are.
next year.
No, I put a date on them.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh.
So Alderman Ellis,
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg,
Aye.
Alderman Mulder,
Thank you. Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper,
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski,
Aye.
Alderman Rogers,
Aye.
Alderman Rosick,
Aye.
Alderman Zappel.
Aye.
Now I'm really happy you didn't give the council president emergency purchasing powers.
There you go. Okay, Mayor,
Never
we
know
are
what I
done
would have
with
done with
that.
that.
Get a lot of chairs to throw in the lake.
Okay.
Okay. On to mayoral appointments for the council for the different committees. And I was asked to make this as more of a public record, so I put it on a PowerPoint so you guys get to see that. I'll also at the end be handing out a sheet so you know exactly where everybody is, and so you don't have to take notes. But first of all, thank you all for serving this past year. And trying to put this together is, I have to say, is a challenge. I did go out and reached out to former mayors. I've talked to former and current city administrators to try to figure out what's been done in the past and what's best for the city. And I looked at kind of 4 core objectives for every different position, and they're all different in every place. Some people are on the same committees, some of them have moved. But the number one thing is I want to do what I think is best for the city. And now that I know all of you, that's been really, really helpful. Also, I think alderpersons need to gain experience in multiple areas. Some people have been on committees or boards or commissions for an extended period of time. So I think it's good that you vote on everything, right? So the more you know, I think the better. We're also in kind of a crazy time now with the pandemic. And so when we look at finances and some of these different things, sometimes situations play a role in what I think is best for the community. I'd also like to offer leadership more roles for different people. And I've started to put more of the newer aldermen in some of the chair positions with the opportunity to do that. But not every appointment has a chaired position. And then, I had reached out to you about a month ago and said, hey, what do you want to do? And so I did my best to try to meet your needs. But I can guarantee you, some of you may not like it, or it may not be perfect. It's difficult to do, and I literally tried my best to fill that out. So ready? Let's hit it. Park and Rec. We're going to stay with Mulder and Shellpepper. A lot of things into the queue. A lot of components of that I'm concerned if we start switching up with what we've got going on with the skate park and these other parks, I want to make sure that we're moving forward. We also have some potential things happening with the boat launch, and I want to make sure that team is kind of hits the ground running. Finance Committee, Matt Mulder's going to serve as chairperson, Rozek secretary, and Karen Spiegelberg as a member. I think that's a really strong team. We have a lot of things coming down the pike that we don't know yet. So that's coming, whether it's going to come from the state, the county, the feds. And so when we look at at the money and what's happening, we have to be incredibly fiscally responsible. And I think this team, and I think you'd all agree, will do a nice job for us. Moving on to tourism, I asked John Zapfel, would like to ask John Zapfel to take this role. John has a lot of marketing and experience in the background. I think that his experience here will bring a fresh look and a fresh approach to the Tourism Commission. Protection and Welfare, Matt Rozek as chairperson, Andy Rogers secretary, Kevin Ellis as a member. Moving on to Technology Committee, Karen Spiegelberg, who started this as chair. I wanted to keep Karen there as we're trying to define what that committee is, isn't, or where it's going in the future. John Zapfel as secretary and Andy Rogers as a member. Public Works, Andy Rogers as chairperson, Kevin Ellis as secretary, and Lou Kavieski as a member. Personnel Committee, who take the lead with Lou Kavieski as chairperson, Karen Spiegelberg and Matt Mulder joining Lou in that group. Moving, do you like the pictures? Anybody?
Yeah, we were just commenting.
Utility Commission, John Zapfel as chairperson, Kelvin Ellis as secretary, and Matt Rozek as a member. Library Board, Chaz Shellpepper, very happy, thank you. That's a little more of a difficult one. It's a little more of a time commitment, so thank you, sir. Police Commission, this is a different one. Under recommendations from our city attorney, what we're going to do is we're going to take that ordinance and we're going to take it to Protection and Welfare and look at the ordinance for that ex officio position. We want to make sure it's well-defined. We want to make sure that there's not confusion. It could stay the same. It could change. It's really going to be up to you, the policymakers, to make that decision. In that process, Chaz Shellpepper will continue as that member on the Police Commission, and we'll see what happens with that position. So I'd like to try to make that a priority so we can get it defined. There are we've done quite a bit of research on that, and there's some things there that we have to look at to make sure that we mitigate any potential risk for the city. Chaz, thanks for doing that. Business Development, the CDA, Luke Kavieski and myself as members onto the CDA. And that is the gang. And so I can grab one of these and pass it around. And you can see on the bottom, we still have comptroller is Alderman Spiegelberg, and we, pending with the police commission. You've already voted on your attendees, and that gives you a snapshot. What you're seeing on the screen, you know, is actually being handed out to you right now, so you know where you are, what's going on. And again, thank you all, because I think the community doesn't have, I'm confident they don't really have a good clue as to what the 8 of you do on committees and things that aren't, and things that you do with committees that you're not even members on or assigned to. And so from the mayor's office and from the residents of the community, thank you, because this is a pretty significant time commitment that people don't always appreciate. So thank you. Moving on to staff reports. I don't believe there are any staff reports unless there's,
Excuse me.
yes.
I need to have
Oh, the mayor.
the city attorney, assistant attorney.
Oh, I skipped. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry about
Nah,
that.
you
We
don't
have,
have to do that.
we have, and then the whippy.
So moving on to the committee, mayoral appointments for city attorney, assistant city attorney, and council confirmation. Can you please list those off, Diane?
So the city attorney would be Stan Riffle, H. Stanley Riffle, and the assistant city attorney, Jeff Eck. Both of them are serving up to this point, so we're just, it's more of a reappointment of the two.
Let the record reflect, Stan said his hourly rate was $140 an
Yes,
hour.
I put that in the record.
Yeah, but it's
I
going up as of my new appointment.
Remove that appointment.
That's fine. That's fine. I don't need this.
Do they need to?
Well, you said you love us. Yes, so I need a motion to confirm the appointments of the two attorneys.
So moved.
Second.
Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper. Aye. Alderman Kavieski. Aye. Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Zaffel.
Aye.
Next appointment is a WPPI board, and those will be Joe Pickard from Utilities and Matt Trebetuski here as a city administrator. I'd like to entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman, Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Zaffel.
Aye.
Okay.
We have one staff report, Mr. Trebetuski.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a reminder, we do have the strategic planning meeting on Thursday. It's at the Public Safety Building in the community room. It'll be from 6 to 8:30 p.m. And you should have received an email just this evening from Lori Sullivan, the finance director. So please look for that if you haven't seen it yet, as well as a copy of the results from the surveys that everyone took. Should have been on your desks this evening. Excuse me.
Moving on, any comments from Alderman? Alderman Rogers, whoa.
So there, this is about 517, 525. There is people living in a house that we're all landlords for that I don't hear how that transition's gonna change with respect to them moving and what that looks like. And I'm bringing this up not to snowball or anything, this is what I'm being asked. So we've got people's lives that are in our hands, and with this COVID-19 stuff where you can't evict anybody until September, I would like some clarification, because I don't know all the rules. Not tonight, I'm asking questions.
Andy, I'll talk to you after this.
And then Mrs. Harrow expected no hardscape, no nothing on 525, except for a potential portage for kayaks and canoes. And I just want to make sure that in the design, as the team that's doing this, is honoring that because it's my understanding that the whole family was in agreement with that. So I'm not trying to, again,
Andy, I'll
throw
talk to
anybody
you
under the
about
bus.
that after this too.
Sure.
It's all in hand.
Fair. And the reason I've been voting no, and I'll continue to, is because I feel like this isn't necessarily a very clear-cut protocol. Like, I don't mind spending 50 grand of money that's already there, but if we don't know about asbestos and how much it's gonna cost to bulldoze the house, and this is a public park, so we're all part of this? Why are we spending money on designing it when we don't even know how much it's gonna cost to make the building go away, or if there's asbestos? So I'm just, these are things I'm being asked, so I'm putting it out there, so just so that,
Absolutely.
that's all.
Those are great questions.
That's
and
it.
actually, we do have answers to what you're talking about. The thing that's important, actually, Matt and I were talking about it, what we're going to be sending off in an email, because I think it's confusing. We have two different projects going at the same time, and they're basically very similar in how they're set up. And so what we've set up is a timeline and everything. They're finalizing that to make sure it's right. Matt and Craig are working on that along with Mark. And so one part's already done, and that's going to come out to you in email today, because when I sat back and looked at it and I saw these no votes, it didn't make sense to me. But if you don't have all the information, then I understand that component. So happy to do that.
Sure.
And great comment, thank you. Other comments from Alderman? Alderman Ellis.
Yeah, I can honestly say that this last election was an eye-opener. We sit up here, and whereas I believe that we have, or we feel as though we have the best for our community, when you're faced in a situation that I was faced in with an individual coming in at the 11th hour, you begin to question yourself, and you say, why am I doing what I'm doing? What is the purpose? I will tell you that up until 3 weeks ago, I was even kind of thinking about not even putting on any signs. Until my eyes were opened up and understanding my position here. And so what I want to do here is I wrote something, and it's not aimed at any one individual or anything along those lines, but I'm just going to go ahead and read it. And prior to me doing that, I want to thank Lou, and I just want to thank everybody who came alongside. Thank you. And helped me through this, and I appreciate that. First off, I want to thank all those voters who voted for me. I consider it an honor and a privilege to serve you as your 4th District Alderman. I've never said this before, but I believe I need to clear the air about myself and who I am. I have lived on Oconomowoc for 17 years as of August of this year. I own a small business that has been blessed to serve this community on so many levels. I have 3 kids that have grown up in the school system here, as well as a wife who graduated in 1979 in Oconomowoc High School. I'm a graduate of Rutgers University in the field of economics and Afro-American studies, class of 1985, and I've been married for 28 years. Now to my point. The last election really got me upset. The mudslinging, the backdoor deals that went on, I felt as though were unnecessary. I'm a strong believer that as an older person, we need to keep our noses out of anything that doesn't involve making or changing policies. I believe that by us sticking our 10 cents into every person's election for purposes of posturing is wrong, and I cannot get behind that person in future endeavors. I believe that the seat that I sit in is one of servanthood, and I am a voice for my constituents. My job is to serve all my district and not pick one specific few people and help them by reducing others, with the end game being their own ill-gotten gain. I might be, excuse me, I am, not I might, I am a registered Republican on paper, but I consider myself a man of the people. I don't care what party you're affiliated with. A country divided will soon be a country conquered. We need to band together and be in one accord, and I believe as an alderman, we need to be that glue that holds this community together. We need to leave our egos outside and come in with an understanding of humility, with the knowledge of making Oconomowoc the best it can be for our future generations. Our position should not be about ourselves, but of the community as a whole. I want to use myself to help my community, not use my community to help myself. I want to give my talents and my time to better improve our community on so many levels. I'm looking forward to the Olympia project. I'm looking forward to the skateboard park, Thackeray Trail, and so much more. I look forward to debating all of you on important issues that surround the policies we need to approve. But just know this, it's only a debate, and please don't take it personally. Let all of us unconditionally engage our community and let them feel proud of what we have accomplished with their help. Divided we are conquered, together we are strong.
Other comments from aldermen? I have one last comment just to dovetail off what you said. What everybody here does, it's about the we and it's about us. It's not about the me or the I. And I think it can be nailed down to that, just that simple. And I truly want to thank, as we're going into this new council, thank all of you, because I'm the new guy on the block with no experience in this position that has learned a lot from each and every one of you. And I think we have a lot of really great things that we can do. So I just want to personally say thank you to everybody, to our staff, to our law enforcement, our fire department, everybody. This has been a fun journey. It's been challenging, and you can see the robust debates that you guys had today and the candor that you use in a professional manner. That's how we get things done. So my hat's off to all of you, and I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.